Okay, good evening. It's the Sutton Conservation Commission meeting on September 5th already. Doesn't feel like it, but it is. And the first one up is 68 Wilderness Drive. Would you like to?
Make a motion to waive the reading of 68 Wilderness Drive.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi, James O'Brien, husband of Brenda O'Brien, property of 68 Wilderness. We were here a month ago to get the permit to rebuild and raise up the stone wall on the cemetery. And at that time, the request was to come back with a cross-section of what the wall would look like and to sort of sketch out where the fill would go onto the land. So I sent that to here. I don't think I have put up there. If not, I could.
And we wanted to know the elevations.
Elevation.
The elevations of the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, all they did on that was just how much higher they are from what it is now. I don't have elevation from, well, I have a little, sorry, from the water, what I have. I don't know, that's that picture. So we get sent a picture, I don't know if I can show it, I have copies.
Yeah, if you want to pass it around.
I don't have
Bennington was supposed to write a letter and sketch to describe how the well will get built.
How the wall will.
You said the sketch, I looked at the letter, so I did the sketch, and he approved that. And then what I did on the second page was mark how high it goes around the whole wall, where it starts at 16 inches, goes across to, so on the second page, I had done a picture where, so you kind of raise up 16 on one side, hits 12, hits back to level at that point. And then it's roughly 17 feet out with the red line is where the fill, kind of fill that point in. And then the cross section was just showing that it would be using all the material that's already in the wall, just reconstructed and rebuilt back up. They'll be putting at least a 12-inch deep wide of drainage rubble behind that with the landscape fabric wrapping that to protect the silt from going into it. And that will allow drainage down through and out. And then the extra material for the stones used on top will be from the lake, because all around there's a huge lot of rubble all around the base of that wall, and the rest will be stacked up against the wall.
Did we have a sketch of where the erosion controls are going to be? Because I don't see. We have erosion controls on here.
Yeah, you're asking.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
But usually there's some
It's more
erosion
just
controls.
How the wall is gonna be rebuilt from what it was.
I have the notes
Yeah.
from last meeting. First note from Bob, get Bennington to write a letter and sketch to describe how the well will get built. Reference elevations. How high will the wall be so the Concom can hold him responsible? And Dan spoke up and said it's important how you tie the wall in on either end and what the elevations will be. And he also wanted to know how far back the fill will go behind the wall.
Did not get the letter, we had worked on a sketch with Bob, sent him a sketch, he said, that's perfect, that's what we're doing, we're just rebuilding it, go that way, so. I didn't get that, and then I did the sketch, the tie-in, I wasn't too sure, that one was like, tie-in
To the wall at the old,
He's got that. He's got the height where he meets the end.
yeah. As we tie-in, I did.
Basically a rebuild with just adjusting the height in the middle to be level, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so at the other end, where it's no longer in the water, it's just that type of right, the rebuild back, so it's all crumbling as well. And actually, back on the 19th, the water level was over that wall. Must have been so much rain, it was just pouring over it. So it's like,
The only thing that I can see, I feel you met all the requirements we asked. The only other thing of discussion at all, which is not identified in the drawing of the picture, is we talked about you were gonna replant 3 of the shrubs there that were gonna be
that's still,
disturbed or buried or
That's still the
relocated.
plan.
that can be made a condition.
But other than that, I mean.
Yeah, we already talked to the guy who actually planted them, so.
Right, which it's those plans right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was part of the old NOI.
Good.
Usually we have erosion controls when people do a wall. Do we need erosion controls?
It's up to
Well,
you.
the wall has the drainage in it, I mean, isn't that part of it? I don't know what you mean by erosion.
Well, if water comes down the hill while you're doing the wall, it could wash stuff into the lake.
That happens right now.
Yeah, it's no different if the
There's no
wall's
way
up or
you
not up.
can- I don't know how you can change that.
You put
There's a
erosion
spring
control,
right
you
up
can,
there.
you put erosion controls up so the silt doesn't get into the,
Well, it's filtered through the wall, the way
Where would you put that
designed
in the lake?
you didn't identify yourself.
Oh, I'm Brenda O'Brien, I'm the owner, I'm his wife.
What we've been seeing people do is they put up a row of the straw wattle at the bottom, you know, give it like 5-10 feet. Because you're gonna be doing this when the lake's drawn down.
Right, yeah.
So
Yeah.
the water's gonna be out a ways, so you have room to, you know, do your work in the dry.
Mhm.
And usually you give yourself like, you know, at least 10 feet, and then put in a row of straw wattles is what most people have been doing.
A row of what?
That stuff we had around when the house was built.
Yeah,
Containers,
the tube,
the
filled
tubes.
with
Yeah.
straw,
Yeah.
that's up to you.
I can't see it doing any good in the lake bed when
Yeah,
the water comes
it
up
all
in the
comes
spring.
down there anyways.
You'd have to shovel it
I
all
mean,
out.
I can
anyway.
show you pictures of it.
Well, if it all comes down there anyway, we just don't want to bring all this stuff in that, you know,
No,
we've usually had people do that, but.
but what would you do to do that? I mean,
Well,
how
I
do
said
you?
we put that water in the lake, 10 feet out of the dry floor, so it doesn't go any further.
See that? I don't think-
That tube.
The wattles, the straw wattles,
Oh,
100%,
Around
Oh,
out there.
yeah.
100% biodegradable, no plastic.
Yeah. But that you
Yes.
probably wanna remove out of it, you don't wanna leave that in the lake, so you probably-
No, when you're done, you take it out.
On the other hand.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Make a motion to issue a negative determination and
With
to,
the conditions, 2 conditions.
with 2 conditions that the 3 trees and or bushes in question are replanted and that a 12-inch, 100% biodegradable straw wattle is put approximately 10 feet off the current wall now and removed prior to the water coming back up next spring.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
You close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Yeah,
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry about that.
Reverse.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, we just did it backwards.
They're all set. They're all set.
Good to go.
Now,
Good
how
work.
do we get the permit? Like, is it mailed to us or?
Yes. Yeah, I'll do milk here.
It'll be done in plenty of time for you to start as soon as the water
Oh,
drops.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it's like you're in this time frame and it's like,
Yep. Okay.
thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See, it's,
Yeah.
let's get
You wanna,
some
wanna
design.
stamp one of these in, Wanda?
You doing all right? Then I went on vacation, when I got home, I was sick.
That's also a continuation.
Can we do minutes for August 15th?
Oh, yeah.
Can we approve it?
Yes, I sent them out,
I thought you did, right?
yeah, 2 weeks ago.
You got 5 minutes, you want me to make a motion on it?
Yeah.
Everybody has to stop putting off body heat. Okay? We gotta move this fast and get people out.
Yeah.
Well, we get 5 minutes, so Bill's gonna do the minutes, so,
Make a motion to approve the minutes of August 15th, 2018.
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
We could do, meeting date, we found out that November 21st is the night before Thanksgiving, and the town hall closes at noontime, so we can't be here on November 21st. So our options are 1 meeting in November or having 1 2 weeks in a row.
We need to decide now.
We do need to do this?
We cannot have a meeting on the 21st.
No way.
How late, how late
Can we make the
can you
decision?
make the decision, because
If
it's,
there's nothing going
Yeah.
on, there's no point in having it. There's a
right,
lot.
but you don't know
Yeah.
what's gonna happen.
Well, why don't we
3
wait till October then to
Wait till
figure that?
the
Yeah,
second meeting in October.
yeah, I think if you
Because
wait
if
second
I
meeting in
get
October, that
something
would be good.
by the
You
7th,
have a better
I'll just-
idea.
If it's busy like this, I'd rather do it 2 weeks in a row than stay till midnight,
Yeah.
like we're gonna do tonight.
Well, the
No, we're not.
next
When-
row
when-
would be, we'd have to decide on 14th or the 28th. So
Well-
that can be decided on the 7th, but yet if I get stuff coming in. I
Well,
have
we'll
10
wait till
days to
October
put
and
on
then decide then. Okay, that was easy. I can do Uxbridge Road request for certificate of compliance. I went there a month ago, and it was right after that 4 inches of rain in an hour. And it had washed out everything in the backside of the new septic. So I had them fix it, and I went out there last Friday, and everything's okay. So I told them we would be probably approving it tonight, and then told them to, they could take out the silt fence and leave the mulch sock and leave that for the winter, but
Make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 21 Uxbridge Road.
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
But, because I gotta sign it.
Okay, this one.
What about 61A for 179 A Lots Road? That's a quick thing, right?
Which one?
Pulling 179 out of 8 Lots Road.
We gotta fill out the paperwork, so.
Yeah,
Um,
the planning board has to fill out.
The, we haven't got a letter from 10 Partridge Road yet?
No.
Okay. And what else one did I see here? There's another one I thought I saw. Anyway, it is now 7:15, so we have 315 Central Turnpike.
Make a motion to waive the reading of 315 Central Turnpike.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I believe we have Mr. Rafferty
Mr. Rafferty is not here.
is not here.
For the record, my name is Ronald Sutton. I'm a professional land surveyor from Gary, County. With me tonight is one of our new engineers, John Federico. She'll probably be seeing quite a bit more of him in the near future.
Let me interrupt you for just a
Sure.
minute. Do we have your resume on file?
You're right, you do not. I owe you my resume, and I will give you John's also. So
Okay.
you can have them on file. I'll have them to you before the next meeting.
And we have your butter notifications?
Yes, we handed them in at the last meeting. Well, 2 meetings ago, actually.
Yeah, they might be in the back there.
I'll take your word for it and check it off. And are you before any other boards?
Since we were here a month ago, we've gone before planning for the scenic road and I'm drawing a blank on the other permit, but we were approved for the work we're doing on the road and the stone wall.
And I don't believe you are on the road. This is from the DPW, and he says the replication wetlands are shown on town property. Please put them on the 315 Central Turnpike property.
I spoke to Mr. Stencil,
Mhm.
Matt, I spoke to him this afternoon. His concern, and I apologize, I didn't go to the meeting, nor Gamache went to the meeting. His concern was that the commission was gonna require him to do maintenance of this area in the future. So I told him I would discuss that with you tonight. He has no other objection other than that, to it being in the road. I mean, we did discuss it last month rather, and having the replication in the road directly attached to where we're filling is not obviously the optimal place. That's normally where you would like a replication. But it does happen to fall in the road layout. And as I said, the planning board did not have an issue, and I spoke to Mr. Stencil, and that was his only concern.
Well, do you have a letter from him saying that he's reversed his decision?
I can certainly get something. He wanted me to discuss with you, if you're gonna attach any conditions to the town because it's in the town's right of way, then he still has an objection, and we'll move it. If you're not gonna attach any conditions to the town, once you've gotten a certificate of compliance for the work, then he does not have an objection, and I can get a letter from him stating that.
That gets into a sticky situation because we just had another one where it was they had to move the property line in order to bring things in. So,
Our concern is we can only issue an order of conditions for the piece of property, not the town. So we technically have no control over the replication area outside of the boundary for that property.
Well, that's what he's concerned with also. He doesn't,
Right.
what control do you have for the replication area after you've issued a certificate of compliance?
None. Once you get a certificate of compliance, it means that the wetland is taken
Right,
and it's good, and then whatever happens to it, happens to it.
right.
But during that time, let's say the owner or the person who buys it and is responsible for building it, doesn't. But then it's on town property, and then there's a lot of this.
And then, right.
Then what power does the commission have? It'll have to go after Matt Stencil.
I got you.
You know?
Okay. No, if that's a concern, I mean, we can certainly, as I said, we can show the replication area on the lot. I think I'd ask for the commission's guidance and where you'd like to see it. Brandon?
Oh, anywhere. There's plenty of locations, little nooks and crannies to put it.
Did you reissue those drawings?
We did. We submitted new plans to the commission.
Do you have files as
I
well?
got something here, let's see, it's 820 is the revised plan. This shows the wetland replication area still along the road.
Right.
this is June.
Um,
You don't have it here.
So, I have notes from last meeting.
Our plan is June 20th. Should be 6/20.
So let me go through the notes. What's up? Okay, this is from the 7/18, there's a comment here, try to realign driveway.
Right, and we have done that. And I apologize for not having paper plans. I thought we had asked if we needed to submit paper plans, and we were told just to submit PDF, but maybe we've been really busy. I might be thinking of another project.
Yeah, electronic plans are good.
Okay.
But
As long as they get sent around.
But we need paper plans for file.
For the file, so when you come that
Oh.
night,
Oh, so normally we would bring them with us?
right, you bring
copies for the.
three
Okay.
sets.
We're still learning.
Yeah, that's fine. 3 sets, so two that they can put up there and one for me.
Okay.
And you were a no-show the other meeting, so we'd like to be notified if you're not gonna be here.
Yeah, I understand that too. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not gonna give any excuses. So we did, that was one of the first comments was, they'd like to see us do what we could to move the driveway away from the wetlands, so we've done that. We've moved the first questionable area where we were, I believe, 17, 19 feet here. We moved it to 25 rather. We've gained a couple of feet by pulling in the limit of work in this area near the driveway opening at the wall. And we've moved it away up here towards the rear of the property. We're up to 35 feet. In doing so, we've managed to protect one more tree, but we're not proposing to minimize what we're doing for replication. We just wanted to point out that there's one less tree going to be cut down because of that moving that.
Next, any questions on that? Next comment was extend the limit of disturbance to the property line so there's no open ends.
No, and you're right, that hasn't been done.
Yeah.
But we will on
That's simple.
Yep.
Excuse me, biodegradable, wattle detail.
Believe.
You have 12 inch is what we're looking for,
Right.
but I don't see anywhere it says.
Doesn't say biodegradable.
You're right.
Okay.
Do that.
100%, no plastic.
Yeah, no vinyl.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it's a straw wattle with like some kind of burlap or cloth
As
or
long
the
as it's biodegradable.
kind they put they blow the mulch into.
Yep.
I think trees were an issue, weren't they?
Is there an issue about the pipes at the road?
The pipe at the road, there was a comment from one of the abutters, asking whether that was gonna restrict the flow. We had one of our engineers take a look at that, and if you look, up the street, which would be downstream from the flow, there's a 24-inch culvert there, which is the same size we're proposing. So if there was gonna be a restriction, it would already be happening, and you'd see flooding in the road here.
It looks like you changed it from an RCP to
And we
ADS.
did, that's one of the changes we discussed in
Can
the
you
first
explain
meeting.
that to the audience?
Sure. Mr. Rafferty has a limited crew, and he was looking for something that was a little easier to install. So rather than reinforced concrete, he asked if we could change the culvert that we're proposing to install under the driveway to a 24-inch ADS. So it's the same size pipe. It's as strong, if not stronger, and it's a lot lighter. So they can maneuver it much better with just a backhoe, rather than having to piece together several lengths of reinforced concrete. They can get one or two lengths of the ADS, cut the size, and it's made for a much easier and cleaner installation.
Okay, so basically just move the well and replication area. And limited disturbance of the property lines.
And I think there was discussion about the number of signs too, the
Yes.
signs.
Yes, and we submitted a detail, and speaking to one of the other people in our Milford office, they suggest that there's a couple of subdivisions that they've done up further north where they've used, it's a plastic marker that's, we submitted the detail, I don't know if you have it, but it's basically three pieces. It's a survey marker, I believe it's like 6 inches square. You drive a pipe through it, and then two rods go through that pipe, and when they get to the bottom, they curl around. Oh, okay, great. So you can see that thing that looks like an anchor on the side. That's how it ends up. You put the yellow block, then drag the hollow pipe, and then drag those thinner rods through, and they turn when they get to the bottom. So they're extremely difficult to pull up. And you can see the round indent on the top of the block. We can put basically any kind of marker, brass, aluminum, have it marked however the commission would like. we've got we did speak about concrete markers, which, I believe there was another gentleman here that was talking about those that night. But this was suggested to us after, so we wanted to present the commission with a couple of options. Mr. Rafferty is just, a little concerned with, I think there's 22 markers. He didn't wanna put the fence post sign in. So we wanted to give the commission a couple of options.
How tall do they stick up?
Those are they're like 8 inches out of the ground, so probably about the same as what you'd see a concrete bound sticking up if we set those. But they're easy to install. Obviously, you don't have to dig a hole or anything. You just place it on the ground and drive the. You can see they come with a. Is it on there? There's a special tool that goes on top of the pipe to drive them in.
What does it say on them?
That's what I would leave up to your discretion. Whatever we can have printed on that is not in a limited amount of characters, but it's pretty.
What gets written on?
That's what I just
There's a
said.
disc. There's like a 3 or 4 inch disc that sits
Is it on here?
That might be on
Oh,
the
it's a
next.
block.
That might be on the next page. Or is that the next?
That's the next
That's all we
page.
gave you? It sits inside, if you go back to the first page, you can see there's that round depression.
Mm-hmm.
It sits inside the pipe. It fits right inside the pipe, so you can't pull that part off either. It's the same thing we would use to mark a lot corner or put in a bound that we set with concrete. The marker, I should have brought one, I had one in the office. The marker, and they can imprint around the edge. They can do pictures, they can do just a stamp in the metal.
Can you do a disc or something?
Yeah, it's a disc. It's like 3 inches, 3 to 4 inches, I believe.
The
Well,
old-
it's smaller than that.
The problem, what happens is, and I know Mr. Rafferty didn't like the look of the signs, and I can agree, but we've conditioned quite a few that if they were sitting here tonight, they're gonna be ticked off because they had to put the fence post with the sign.
I think it's a pretty sign myself.
I do too.
Well, that's, I mean, and I can understand
Well,
not wanting them out right out your back kitchen windows.
There's been two versions. There's been the traditional signs
Yeah.
that stick up 4 feet above the ground.
Which is the preferred one.
Preferred, and then there's the Glenn Kravosky ones, which is on the concrete or granite bound with a disc or placard glued or affixed to the top of it.
And that was primarily somewhat of a special condition because that was a metal area. It was gonna be mowed once a
Right.
year.
That's
And
right.
it was a separation between lawn and metal. In this case here, we've got no metal.
It's all
There's no-
wood.
And those
it's all
signs were
wood.
also right out like the person's kitchen or living room window or something. They were.
Right, is it an opening area that would really stick out like a sore thumb?
I think the standard post with the Lebanon's logo on it.
That's your call.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward the standard ones also. I don't know how long those would last, but if you could bring one in when you come in the next time so we can see it. but-
Sure.
What, one of these things?
They're only
They're
about,
gonna be
That
this
high?
high, lost in the grass,
Grass.
and the disc on top is gonna be this big, so you can use your magnifying glass to read that says this is conservation.
Right,
All right,
yeah.
so it's not gonna be serving any purpose other than,
get buried in the weeds.
exactly, and,
Okay. So I guess the answer seems to be, we wouldn't allow those.
Okay. And your sign has just a blank space in the middle?
The one that we had originally proposed, you had given us the detail for this, and then when we
it shows a
started
little
talking about
wetland plant in the
alternatives.
middle.
Yes, we'll change the
And,
detail to match the one.
the construction detail, I don't know if I sent you anything on that. Let's see, yeah, set it in ground 18 inches with concrete to prevent removal. So that's what we got here. It's usually 2 3/8 diameter pipe with a cap. What people usually do is they use stainless sheet metal screws and just screw it right in. I think it's a minimum of 3 feet off the ground.
Yeah, you sent in
I sent all that.
you sent me a detail, I'll make sure that comes on the plan so that I know
Okay.
exactly what you're looking for.
Can't even remember if I did that, but Thank you.
We need something.
But they still have to come back with a wetland relocation, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, they gotta come back with, move the wetland replication area on the property. My recommendation is try to find an area that's already open, so you don't have to cut down any trees.
Okay.
It's environmentally sensitive and easier.
Yeah.
Second is, extend the LOD to property lines
Yep.
and, update that,
Fix the details.
that detail on
Yeah.
the sign and the
Waddles.
the wattles,
Yeah, but before we finish that, I think there's people in the audience that want to speak on this too.
Let me get to it, and I will.
Yeah, let's just-
Yeah, yeah. The other thing would be your
The
resumes.
resume, yes.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this?
Yeah. My name's Leonard Hackett, I live at 137 Exeter Road. What's the buffer zone between the houses, between what their lawn's gonna be and what our lawn's gonna be? Is there any?
Their lawn?
Yeah, well, you know what I'm saying, like the trees, is it gonna be like a buffer, or are we gonna have them right there in our backyard, what house is it?
They're proposing to cut down the
I don't-
minimum
I
amount of
just
trees.
wanna see- I
You wanna
haven't seen it.
take a look at the plan? Which one?
Right here,
You're here?
yeah,
That area? That's where you.
it's more wet right there.
They haven't done anything about the house. This hearing is to put in the driveway and utilities, but
Right.
the house is not, it's for a future proposed house, but there's,
Okay, I got it, but this is the driveway right here,
Yeah.
proposed driveway right there, okay.
Yeah, so that looks like it's about 30 feet, I
Yeah.
would say, off of your
All right,
property.
okay.
But there are still, whatever's there, we're not proposing to cut down with it.
No, I understand, I just wanted to see the plan, that was it, okay.
is there anyone else?
Or do they have to get another order of conditions for the house?
Uh,
I haven't been to plan.
Is that in
Yeah.
that
The
jurisdiction?
house is more than 100 feet away. It's really what we're concerned with is the driveway.
All right, so this is it.
If they can perk it, because it hasn't been perked yet, right?
Right, that was what started this whole thing, why they decided to submit for the driveway, because they needed a way to get back to market anyway, so.
All right, so I have 5 bullet points. Move the replication area onto the property, extend the LOD to the property lines. You're gonna be using the traditional signs and revise the detail, update the detail as I sent the email to you. Get the resumes in and 100% biodegradable wattles. Anything else that I'm missing?
Try to get the plans in time for everyone to review, so the
Oh,
next
sure.
meeting we can open and close it.
Now, what happens if are you gonna blacktop the driveway and everything to go perk it, or what happens if it doesn't perk then?
That's a good question. I would assume the perks would happen, as soon as they were able to physically get back there. It has perked in the past.
Once.
Is there an
A lot of
expiration date?
times it hasn't perked, is my understanding.
Can I ask a question? Why can't he just take a rubber, excuse me, why can't he just take a rubber track excavator in there, a small one?
Okay.
I've got pergolas for 10 years, why can't he just, and there's no driveway, you just knock a couple of trees, whatever are in the way down is small, and just go dig it that way, and it doesn't really ruin anything but a hole in the ground.
They did it before.
And that's better than building a driveway, than that, if it doesn't perk, now you got a driveway stuck in the woods for nothing.
I believe one of the issues was access to that site. They figured they had to do the driveway to get access to it. If one of the abutters would allow them to go through their yard, that might be a possibility.
For the record, we didn't ask them to do the driveway. They
Yeah.
came to
Oh,
us
right.
with it,
Oh,
you
no,
know.
I understand, I'm just suggesting something. that's
Right.
all.
Realistically, if it is a poor perk, it'd just raise the system up more, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like we said, it has perked in the past, and I know we've heard some evidence that it hasn't. Regulations have changed, technology has changed, so something that was considered not perkable in the past may be perfectly fine to put a septic system on now. I'm not saying that's the way it's gonna be. We've got a big lot here, we've got a lot of area outside of any resource area that we can try and perk in. I'm fairly new to the project, but from what I've been told, they're pretty confident that they can get a perk. I don't think they would go would have gone through all the trouble of engineering this, having us represent them, if they weren't confident that it was gonna perk.
I understand all that, but I would have thought it might be beneficial to them to explore, to see if they could get access from some other way to do the perk first. But, you know,
I'm not sure, they may have.
would you like to come back in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Make a motion to continue to
19th.
September 19th at
7:30.
7:30.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
7:30, was it?
Yep, 9:19.
Thank you very much.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
What was that date again?
September 19th, 2 weeks from tonight, 7:30.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was your name again, sir?
And we also exchanged emails as well.
We
We
did.
sent you information, so if you need my contact info, I can send it.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a good night. This is new, but isn't this a continuation?
No, they weren't here. Well, yes, they continued last time, but they weren't here.
Which one's that?
So we can still waive the reading.
Make their call.
Yes, but I'd like to explain what an ANRAD is. Is anyone here for 211 Boston Road?
Thank you.
We'll waive the reading.
Make a motion to waive the reading of 211 Boston Road.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
I just want to explain a little bit what an ANRAD is. It's just to delineate the wetlands. It's not for anything else. So it's just to look at the wetland lines and make sure that they're accurate. But I do have a couple of questions. You did get your DEP number.
Yes.
You need a green card.
Yeah, abutters notifications. I know you went to the planning board previously.
I believe that's the story. Me personally, no, but yes.
Do you know what the result was?
I think that planning board was looking for the ANRAD. So I think that,
So it's pending, nothing
That's
has
my
been decided?
understanding. That's my understanding. I haven't been part of that process, but that was my understanding.
I was at that meeting when they first went, and they were trying to decide between an open space development and a traditional type. So I don't know what the result was.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And my understanding is they were waiting for this.
Probably depends on how wet it is.
Actually, Brandon and I were out there on last Friday. Would you like to
Yeah,
give a presentation before he does?
Certainly. So I'm Scott Jordan from Ecotech. I have a revised plan. For you, sir.
Thank you.
And I have, would you like a copy or just want to look at my board? I have two for your file if you'd like them, Wanda.
Yeah.
All those, some of them done, right? So I'm Scott Jordan from Ecotech. We were hired a few months ago to delineate wetlands on this property. It's about 9 acres at 211 Boston Road, just up the street. Basically, we just delineated, at the bottom of the property down by Boston Road, there's sort of a wet meadow, area that turns into a wooded swamp. And we have an intermittent stream, out behind the property, tributary to this swamp area. And this is mostly bank in this area of intermittent stream. Randy did request one revision to the flagging, which, that's the plans we carried in. They show the revision out behind the property in this area. He hung a flag, SCC1. So we connected 842 to that and then down to 851. So that moved the wetland boundary slightly to the west, and of course the associated buffer zone slightly also. So that was a requested revision that Brandon had, so we managed to get that done, and that's about it, I believe.
Looks good. That's what we got. I only want to make one qualitative note. In that very southern little square area down there, there's a stone wall along the southern property line with some
Huge.
big old oak trees. Just a qualitative note for any future NOIs, and it's within 50 feet of the wetland boundary. I'm gonna be looking closely at that area. I think it has high wildlife habitat value. So, take note for the future.
And I found 5 golf balls.
Isn't it amazing? Golf balls, you could be in the middle of a 400-acre property.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely, but I wondered, do people drop this out of a plane?
It's the weirdest thing.
There is a country club nearby, but it seems a little far away.
It's weird.
They keep practicing the chipping in the back.
Wetland indicator species.
No tires though. There was a dump.
That's a wetland indicator.
There was a dump.
Shopping carts.
Yeah.
And stream is just, the stream, how does the stream affect it?
There are two intermittent streams that flow together. There's one on the north side that flows to the east. It actually comes up, there's that one there from the south, and it follows the wetland boundary pretty closely and runs northerly. And then there's another one that comes out from under Boston Road and runs easterly, and then they connect off-site. They merge over in that corner there on the right-hand side, thereabouts.
That one was running pretty good from Boston Road because I could hear it before I saw it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
at the bottom.
And otherwise, the property, besides the house and the lawn up by the road, it's mature forest, the whole thing. Some nice stone walls, and again, the really big oak, with at least a dozen, 2, 3, some even 4-foot diameter, sometimes double red oaks.
Any significance to that?
Being that close to the wetland, they have, in my opinion, high wildlife habitat value.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Gerald Kelly, 7 Wainwright Drive.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, does that mean those have to be left standing?
I'm going to recommend it, that's why I'm saying it now, so for future development, I think that area should be a little more handled with kid gloves than not.
You're talking all the way at the back of the property anyway.
All the way at the back, the very southern, that little square, down that area. That's, to me, that looks
Yeah,
like the
I remember.
area where the detention basin would be.
Sort of oaky piney in there, from what I recall, wasn't it?
Not pine.
Not in that, there is pine, but not in that area, there's
Yeah.
more oaky.
Yeah. I think we pitch this way, this is high.
Yes.
Yeah, Tim Connors, where is this?
Your address?
38, what? Where is it in relationship to the easterly brook? Where you're planning to build?
Oh, there's no plans to
Or
build.
not plan, but mapping out.
This is our wetland boundary here, sir.
Yeah,
And we need to flag wetlands within 100 feet
right.
of our property. So this is slightly off property. Here's our property boundary in the heavy line. So we have a wetland boundary, these are flag numbers, and we zig and zag, and they go offside a little bit here, and then this is kind of steep up, straight line, just a flashy stream that probably flows once in a while, and, again, off-site here. So that's our wetland boundary. There's a culvert in here under Boston Road. This is kind of a wet meadow area, I believe, and then it flows under Boston Road.
Now, where is the golf course in relation to that? I can't quite figure it out.
Oh, you know what, the easiest thing for me to do is to get off my duff and bring this up on the map.
Thank you.
Yep.
Andy, do you want to sit over here and see about it from here?
Oh, I'm happy, I like sitting next to Bill.
I just asked one question while we're doing it.
We're gonna have to move next week anyway.
Rats. Oh. Should've said that. That's the 100-foot buffer zone. It's a jurisdictional area, under the, bylaw, and it's, 100 feet from the wetland boundary, imaginary line. Within there, we require review from the board.
So here's the property outline right here in blue, and here's Pleasant Valley, and this is the villas right here. So let me zoom in slowly, give you an idea, and this will probably give you a better idea where the streams are.
Right.
Okay, so there's a stream right here. It flows up more or less into this area, which is more open than forested. And there's another stream
Down that way, right?
down this way, and it runs this way, and they merge right here, and then they continues in this little pond, and then onward to eventually Cold Spring Brook. So that's what we have.
And so within that property would be whatever people, that blue line is what they're considering doing anyway.
That's right, right.
And the stone wall you pointed out is just the
Yeah,
other
the
side of
stone
the
wall
road.
that I'm talking about is along here. And there was a bunch of, big trees right in this area that I have a special affinity for already.
And is there also one down along the road that goes to east, west, I guess?
Probably along the, closer to the brook, yeah,
Right.
but that's off-site, so there is, one, I guess, procedural issue with this plan is that a large portion of this wetland boundary was flagged off-site, in order to show how far the buffer zone will go into the site. When you do an INRAD, you can only verify those flags that are on site. You can't verify flags that are on someone else's land. Because what you're doing is you're making an assessment of someone else's land that they never asked for. That said, it's good to know, so you know how far the buffer zone does go into the property. So I think that this is the plan that they should use going forward if they do any kind of development plans.
Thank you.
I think you're good.
Now, we would issue an ORAD for this,
That's right.
an order of resource area delineation.
Make a
Just-
motion to issue an order of resource delineation
Area.
area.
No, resource area delineation.
Order resource area delineation.
ORAD.
Oh, also known as ORAD for 211 Boston Road.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Until we don't get too many of these, Scott. Appreciate you bringing it in.
Yeah, nobody does too many of these. All right, thank you very much.
I think that's the first one in years we've had.
Mine was the last one, I think.
That's right, you were the
We
last
have
one.
another one coming.
That's the old
It's a
drawing.
good safety net.
That's
for
the old
future
drawing,
development
yes.
plans.
Scott, we need the new drawing.
This is the new one.
Oh, that's the new one.
That's
Okay.
new, and she has two. Two enough for you, Wanda? All right, I'll take
This
that.
is, this is August 2nd.
That's August something.
Two here, you guys have two up there.
We,
They just
I
had
don't,
one.
I don't know which one it is, though. We got two that are
It
August.
is
What's the date?
Date.
This is August 2nd.
9/5/18
9/5.
is just wetland line, so 9/5/18 is the beginning of the
Yeah.
interactive, or red.
So you don't just put all this in, yes, you sign a 95.
We don't have one.
Okay, right here you do. I put it as a third, but that's all right.
Okay.
Just sign this one and I'll straighten out after.
Okay.
This just goes in this file too.
So this is just monthly report here. That's the, wetland map.
Well, so if I have that shows, I didn't hear it.
No.
Embarrassing.
Open the window.
Well, it might be now. The sun goes down. Is there something here we need to
Yeah,
sign?
you need to sign it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's awkward because it's at the top. You just put these in here. And this. Okay, this is it. Oh, that's the third copy. That's right.
And you wearing a t-shirt?
That's the next one.
And a beard?
It's a lot of punishment, I guess. What's that? Very hot coffee too.
Okay, here we go with this one. Okay, this is Merrill Ponds.
Make a
and-
motion to waive the reading of Merrill Ponds, WMA, West Sutton Road.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Buttrick.
Hello, Dan Buttrick with Time Bond, here to talk about Merrill Ponds project. So when we were last here, we went through the project, we talked about the interests of Wetland Protection Act and the Sutton bylaw. We talked about different alternatives and how they may or may not be implemented. One thing that came out of that meeting, sort of the primary thing in my mind, was the interests of fire protection. The town will be losing one of its pump suction locations through the reduction of water level in this pond and removal of the dam. So I guess I primarily prepared today to discuss that, what we've been going through for the last month or two to address that issue. So Todd Olanek, who was here last time as the new district manager in Mass Wildlife Central District, has discussed with the fire chief at least once, a few times, and they prepared this joint letter that I have with me. I don't know if you got a copy already, but
I don't think so.
here's here it is. Nobody else wants a copy? Nobody wants a copy. Anyone else? Yeah. Yes. So they've met a couple times. They looked at some locations at Adams Pond because we were looking at the possibility of providing an additional intake off Adams Pond. And we've sort of come up with this plan here, which we haven't sent to you yet. But it basically would be adding a dry hydrant along West Sutton Road with an intake in Welsh Pond to provide that lost firefighting capacity. So to sort of investigate this, the district had a few of their field technicians go out. They did some soundings. Out toward in this area of Adams Pond, there's a deep spot that's about 5 feet deep. It's about 70 feet away from the road. That's too far to really put the intake out, because as you're pulling the water through, that creates a lot of friction, and then there's cavitation issues with the pump. So what we'd be looking to do instead is remove about 75 cubic yards of sediment right next to the road to create a deep spot in Welsh Pond, about 5 feet deep. Line it.
In Welch Pond or Adams Pond?
In Adams Pond, I'm sorry.
Welsh Pond just sort of rolls off my tongue at this point, that I may make that mistake more than once. It would probably have to be lined with riprap. We're still working on details like this to keep the sediment from collapsing back into that low point. So it's about 75 cubic yards of sediment to come out, about 1,200 square feet of impact, and 300, or not 300, about 30 linear feet of bank impact, probably a little bit less than that to put the dry hydrant in. There's one spot that's a little bit closer. So here's Adams Pond Dam, which you may remember from being out there or the work a few years ago. There's a location along here where there are not any large trees that would have to come down. So I think that's the spot that we would pick. There might be a few like 3 to 4 inch diameter trees in that area that may have to be removed to accommodate the excavation, but I would
And I
replace
imagine
those
you
in
wanna
kind.
keep it clear for easy access.
Yep. We'll have to sort those details out. So this is what we're coming to you with, and we're prepared to do this. And I think that the next step would be to just finalize this a little bit further and then come to you with another notice of intent to address this work.
Would there be any parking spaces that fishermen could be at, or a way to pull the fire trucks off the highway or off the road?
Not really. It is tight through there, granted, but, you know, the Todd and fire chief did look at, you know, site distance issues, because it is sort of on the inside of a curve, but I think they determined in the end that it wasn't that big of a problem, that they would need to do anything that extensive about it. Oops.
So could you look up at the TV and show me an idea about where it would be?
Yeah, so we're still trying to pick the best spot, but I think it's right in that. It's either, I think it's in that section. That looks like a crown of a large deciduous tree. And then there's another one and another one, and I think it was in that section right there. But I think what we'll do before we submit this would be to, you know, really look along the stretch and see if there's other spots where it would make more sense. I think the pond is uniformly shallow along that stretch, so I don't think it makes a big difference from that perspective.
So would this get done prior to the removal of the dam for Welch Pond?
I think we'd probably try to do it at the same time as part of the same contract, so it'd be simultaneous, essentially.
So there's two public safety issues, the dam and the fire, so I think that's a little more immediate than the dam, but, anyway. So that solves the fire issue if you put in the dry hydrant there.
Yep. So, I don't know, I guess if you have comments on this or concerns, we could, you know, try to address that or bring it back for, you know, bring it back for those.
Brandon, you have anything to say?
Sure you don't wanna dig it deeper?
We can, we'll probably try to go deeper. We'll be pretty limited by how soft that sediment wants to be as it moves back into the hole.
I know how it can be.
And the size of the machine that you can get, they're just physically, the machine's gonna stay on the road, so you gotta reach out and down, and there's just a physical limit to it.
Did you,
get a
state who you were?
Oh, this is Caleb Slater, Mass Wildlife.
Get a Cat 320,
Do reach
pretty good work.
Reach pretty good, yeah.
I guess as part of this too, I forgot to mention, the plan would be to take the sediment that's removed and then stockpile it in this area at Adams Pond and seed it in place there too.
What would the purpose be?
To have something to do with it, basically, because sediment's not exactly soil. There's not a market for it generally. You have to identify the location that it goes and then sit it there unless you get like a beneficial use determination. So you know, most construction sites, contractor, if it's not contaminated, can take it, sell it, use it, but sediment doesn't have that same flexibility.
Can use it like landfill capping or anything like that?
You have to amend it or mix it with other
Works
sources.
great with more
There's no room
stalls.
to stockpile it.
Yeah.
Bob,
There's
you
no
have-
room to stockpile it.
What's that?
There's no room to stockpile it. I
No.
mean, you're restricting the, it's tough access, you say that's a fishing pond for the community. You got tough access as it is, and then you build a pile of muck in the middle of the only path you can get down there to go fishing. I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
We wouldn't block the path completely, just,
Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense to leave that material there. You're gonna have to cut down some additional trees or brush or something to get in there to stockpile it. I mean, no, stuff would have to leave the site. What's the difference in the grade?
in the grade from the roadway surface down to the.
From your dry hydrant elevation down to the sump on the dry hydrant, right?
That is roughly 10 feet, 10 feet, I believe.
But we're not sure that that schematic is actually representative of the actual grades that.
They don't know where it's gonna be yet because this is a proposed thing.
That's what I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
And
So-
you can't suck any more than, I think, 18 or 20 feet, so you are restricted on where you can put the thing anyhow.
Yep.
Because the fire trucks have got a limited amount of suction that they're allowed that they can suck it up, so.
Yep.
You're very tight, and as that road goes up, that height gets higher and higher as you go down there.
Yep.
So,
These are all things we're thinking about. I mean, I guess,
Um,
go ahead.
Andy? Bill? Do you have something more to say, Mr. Patrick?
If the sediment needs to go off site someplace, then we would still have to stockpile it there to let it dewater so that it would be haulable. We'd be talking about hauling it very wet from here over to that location because there's absolutely no room to do any kind of dewatering on the side of the road. And that's, we don't have a lot of land at our disposal in this area. Most of the wildlife management area here anyways is the pond surfaces and the little bits of roadway shoulders and around them.
Hey, Mr. Koalas?
Paul Koalas, 95 West Sutton Road. I'm not against this, a good idea. I just think, and Dan has mentioned that, you know, that there's more study to do, but following up on your concerns, Joyce and Bob's, I have the same concerns you have about sight lines around there, and maybe there's gotta be a little better study as to where the best place to put when a truck pulls over and someone comes around the corner, that sounds like a public safety hazard. And, you know, Bob mentioned that the elevations, I know that'll be, and I'm sure you're gonna work on that, but I think the public safety part of pulling over, like on Welsh Pond now, where they do the suction pond that's leaving, there's a pull-off there, so that, you know, truck can get completely off the road but obviously it's very narrow there, but maybe there's an area farther down where there is a little more area to do that. I'm just thinking public safety, and I just, you know, echoing your concerns and Bob's concerns with elevation and pull-off and sight lines, that's all, if we're gonna do it. And I know you said this isn't etched in stone where it is, so I'm sure you're gonna do more. Just hope that when there's more study and there's more follow-up on that part.
That's been part of the discussion with the fire chief about sight lines, and he wasn't concerned with the locations along there.
I think this is a major concern, but in the pyramid of concerns, I don't think this is a very important concern
No.
compared to the other issues that are coming along with this whole project. And I've voiced my opinion on all those concerns over the whole process, so I don't know.
Any concerns about recreational values?
Big time.
Would you like to reiterate them?
We were talking at one point about the Lake Singletary boat ramp replacing that area as a fishing area. And not only is that falling apart, I don't think that's a good spot to be fishing. That's gonna get people in the water there with motorboats going by and, there's substantial value to the Welsh Pond. Substantial value, and I don't think that opening that up is gonna help anything in any good way. whether it be Lake Singletary, whether it be public safety for fire, whether it be sediment traps for anything. I mean, all these chain of ponds come directly from a field that gets fertilized. So there's a phosphorus issue. I mean, that in Lake Singletary can lead to blue-green algae. I think
You want to
that-
address that?
I think there's a-
Weren't there
there's a-
studies done?
I think this is a big snowball.
Yeah, I mean, we've been looking at these issues and trying to address them, and, you know, after sort of looking at everything and talking about it, I really don't think there's gonna be a big adverse impact on the town. I think this is going to really be a benefit to the town. What we hear, when dam removals occur across the Commonwealth is that, you know, they often start off with residents and having these concerns, but then once they're completed, people end up being pretty pleased with how they turn out oftentimes. So, it's.
I think it would be a different story if these dam removals ended up emptying into the ocean and not a fully recreational lake.
I mean, again, we've tried to do what we can to keep the sediment in place, to maintain a pool in the bottom of Welsh Pond. Water that now bypassing Welsh Pond will flow into it because that ditch won't be flowing so often, and that's gonna pass through the wetland that we'll be establishing in the bottom of the pond. You know, we've gone back and forth about recreational value before too. Plenty of recreational value in the area. Our plan is to improve recreational access and use of Adams Pond once we get around to doing that project. It won't be immediate, granted. I can't commit to a timeline, but, you know, it's part of the plan that we're following, so.
So there will be more access for fishing in Adams Pond once you follow through with the next phases?
If you park 2 cars there instead of 1.
Well, I guess for me, the hardest thing is your job is to come here and tell us why this is good and beneficial, and I get it. And this is a state thing, and we're not gonna win against the state, or poor choice of words. But if there's anyone else in this town, myself included, that want to do this on my own property, it would never, ever, ever pass, ever. And I'll sit up there and say that. I understand you're gonna tell us every benefit to it. What gets me is I don't think, correct my memory, I've seen a study that said what would it cost to rebuild the dam, and I don't think that's too much to ask.
We've done that.
And we've seen the cost, and it's been to everyone in the town of Sutton.
I believe we discussed it at one of the early meetings.
Yes, you did, and it would include taking out the whole of West Sutton Road, I believe.
Well, it's not gonna be cheap.
Right.
And I'm not, I don't wanna blow the state's money because state can't fix roads they should be fixing. But with that being said, if I was gonna do it on my own property, and you folks know, and I'm sure everyone in the audience agrees, I would be going through a lot. And I just think there's a lot of people downstream that are gonna be affected, and for the state to not come in and say, here's a black and white estimate from someone to rebuild this dam, I don't think you guys have done your job. Because if I was doing it, I'd be required to do it. And I'm sorry, I think that needs to be presented, it needs to be presented to the town. Because you know what, there's gonna be a lot of people that ticked off on Lake Singletary, and you know what they're gonna say? Geez, I had to go to 3 meetings to rebuild my stone wall. I had to go to 5 meetings to cut a tree down. And you just let them pull the dam out, and we're gonna say, we tried, but we can't take on the state. And I know we're not gonna, truth be told, there's no real number for that dam. No one's done it. If you had done it, you would've given us an estimate. You got preliminaries, and it's not gonna be cheap to do an estimate. But that should be presented. It's just my opinion, present it.
They brought that up about the elevation at, what was it, 570, and it's at 575, you wanna bring it to 570, and tried to meet in the middle at 572, and it just, there's no interest.
Well, it's same thing happened
They
on Lake
told me-
Manchog. The
they
dam
told
was
us-
horrible, horrible, horrible when they wanted to take it out. Then when they want us to take it, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. It's beautiful, it's great, take it. And it cost the town how much money to fight that before I was long involved. But I saw both sides of that, and I just, again, I just don't think it's right.
I kind of disagree. I think they've done studies to try to prevent the sediment from leaving there, and then I think they have a good plan.
I agree they've done that, but they didn't give us an estimate for a new dam.
It's gonna be a lot more than this project.
Well, can you do that?
We do have it. We presented in public forums in town before. I don't have it with me right now, so I can't.
Yeah, the meeting in the winter there, when we went out and it was 10 below zero and wind, you were
I just
talking about
wish
that.
someone would come out and just say, we don't want the dam because the state doesn't want the liability. We're gonna make the cost so high to rebuild the dam because we don't want the liability, and this is why we're gonna do, just be honest with us. Why do you wanna cut the tree down the lake? I wanna cut the tree down the lake so I can see the water. Just be honest. You wanna get rid of the dam for liability.
And for habitat, but liability is part of it, certainly, and.
You wanna get rid of the
maintenance-
dam for liability.
Maintenance.
For habitat.
Habitat, maintenance, it's all one. If we rebuild it now, we're gonna have to rebuild it 20 years from now.
See, but you're,
We
but
don't
you're
wanna
being,
do that.
but you're,
We don't wanna
you're,
ma-
so
we
your
don't wanna
answer,
rebuild
you're
it
being
All right, I
honest.
20
think
years from
we've,
now.
I think we've beat the
We've
horse
said
enough.
that, and liability is part of it. Of course, we want less liability, but that's not the only reason we're doing it. It also has a habitat restoration component that removing it makes for better habitat as far as we're concerned.
I think the safety of Lake Singletary is more important.
I don't think it's gonna affect
I
it.
don't think it's gonna affect it either.
I do.
Let me ask this question. From a recreational standpoint under the bylaw, is there anything they can do, any kind of form of mitigation that they could possibly do to help offset where you think are gonna be the detrimental impacts associated with what they're doing? Is there anything they could do to try to offset that, to make you feel better about the project?
Well, I think one is right there, because that's a more immediate public safety issue than.
But it's public safety, not necessarily
Yeah.
recreational. I got a feeling it's gonna be a nice little deep bass hole, but, anything besides that?
Well, in the future, what you gonna do, put more parking spaces
Build
in?
a pond, so that
I
the
think
kids
step-
can stop and fish on the way home, that the father can take his kid fishing someday in the pond. So the painters can go and paint the pond. There was 2 guys painting the pond this past week. There's, in the past 2 weeks, I've counted at Wells Pond, 3 different people stopping on the way home to fish. Down the other way at Arnold's Pond, you can't go by there on a weekend without seeing at least 1 car, if not 2, down there fishing. Now, you say that there's plenty of recreational areas to fish in this town. Name one that is easy access by road. Name one. You go down to Manchog Lake, and the entire lake is covered with signs. Any place where you're halfway near the water of the road is covered with signs, no parking, no trespassing. You give me any neighbor that lives on Manchog Lake or Singletary, Paul does not allow people to park in his driveway and cast off of his dock, regardless of how friendly they are, nor does anybody else. I mean,
We're mandated to allow people to hunt, fish, and hike, bird watch, whatever they wanna do on our property, and they'll
That's-
still be,
that's right, but you're
and they'll
getting
still
rid-
be able to do that.
you're
only
getting
in
rid of the
small amount
property,
of pond.
and there won't be any
We're not
fishing.
getting rid of the property, it's
There'll
gonna be
be-
more land that you can walk on.
And you
There'll
can't
be
put
a
up
s-
no parking signs
No, we
along
can't
there,
stop
so that's
anybody
why
from
they can
doing
stop
anything.
there.
There'll be a swamp that we can't go hunting in either.
You certainly can go hunting there.
Well,
If
I
you
think
get 500 feet from the neighbors, you're all set.
All right, I think we're getting off the topic here.
It's a change in habitat type. I think there's some lamentation about the loss of fishing recreational opportunities. And I guess the painting too.
It's against the best interests of Sutton citizens, in my opinion.
Additional parking areas over at this little peninsula here, perhaps, so people can access Adams Pond more easily?
Paul's got a
That's
question.
the plan when we rebuild that dam.
Can you go into detail? Can you explain that again?
Access over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, the dike section will be widened, compared to what it is now. The crest of that dike will be raised. This is in the EIR, or the expanded ENF, which I also don't have with me. But it shows a drawing that includes those 2 features, adding guide rails along the side to allow access, and then parking in this location.
Where will parking be?
Parking will be in the, this upland area in between the dike and the dam.
So you're gonna have a little access drive, it's gonna come in from
Yep,
North Sutton Road.
From right over the top of the dike.
Right over the top of the dike, yep, and there'll be a little parking, how many parking spots?
It won't be many, it'll be 2 or 3 probably.
Okay.
And it also, we're gonna try to fit in a little boat, put in, probably like a car top access to Adams Pond from that location also.
And people could paint there and fish there.
I mean, people will be able to paint Welsh Pond too, once the wetlands start establishing it, you know. I like how wetlands look, I don't.
Paul?
We were talking about mitigation, Brandon, one of the things that we talked about before, and, you know, Dan and Caleb, everyone's been good, they've come to our meetings, we've done everything, we left, you know, agreeing to disagree, but it was not disagreeable. And, one of the things that had come up early on in the walks was that if there was additional algae blooms, weeds, would there be any help from the state to even, you know, offset the cost that we bear for that? You know, we spend, well, this year we spent, I don't know, 23,000, but, you know, you can spend, you know, we didn't have an algae bloom, we had the clearest water actually in the history of the lake. We got a Secchi reading that basically we've got, in feet, we've got almost 17 feet of clarity in the lake, which is tremendous. It's one of the, you know, better lakes around. We've had Solitude, which does all the lakes basically for management years. That, you know, as far as the lake that people live on, we've probably got the best visibility and clarity, which is due somewhat to what I think is the sediment, you know, settling into Welsh Pond, but we all disagree and can agree on whatever, agree to disagree on that. I think I gave you guys way back the thing that Geosyntec did, which did the study on the Merrill ponds and the effects on the lake, not particularly for that. They did it as part of our lake management plan 3 years ago, and you know, they actually cite, you know, 5 cases here that, and I'll give you, where they say that, you know, the downstream effects of removing an impoundment that feeds into a freshwater pond is detrimental to the water quality. And so, I mean, that's from, you know, Geosyntec, so I mean, you know, maybe, I should probably, so some of the, we gave this to Mass Wildlife, when you were in the MEPR office, when they were looking for it, that was part of what we gave, and along with a position letter, but we have more of these I can now give them.
I sent that as an email.
Yeah, it was actually sent as in hard copy to MEPR, to when they were looking for the remarks.
You might as well
Yeah.
send hard copies in now.
Yeah, I'll pass these around, you guys can. That's it, I read that them all, I think that'll be enough for everybody.
So what is this, the conclusion of this?
Well, can I just read one section here, Brandon, before I hand it out? Just, I get down, it talks about, you know, this is a letter to the MEPR, and goes on Merrill Wild, talks about what the Merrill Pond is and how they flow north to south. I mean, that's kind of background. And then it says, however, recent studies of nutrient dynamics, which is a good, the recent study of nutrient, that following dam removal provides some findings that could be applicable to Lake Singletary and the Merrill Ponds. These studies which generally indicate dam removal may have a negative impact on Lake Singletary by increasing nutrient and sediment export are summarized below. And there's, you know, there's pieces of study, and just that, you know, so it's basically what we're talking about. I think that's come up there. We're concerned with this, with the removing, I mean, we've got 5 impoundments we talked about.
Right.
And we're talking about taking 4 of the 5 impoundments out. We're taking Arnold Pond into Adams, Schoolhouse Pond, taking that impoundment. Putnam Pond's already really removed the impoundment. That's kind of already, you know, gone. And then but, you know, Welsh Pond is the last, you know, Welsh Pond is the last.
So what's your concern?
My concern is that we're losing the sediment, you know,
You're losing sediment?
we're losing the sediment filtration.
Sediment
It's,
filtration.
you know, it's like, this is why you have, you know, like,
So you think there's gonna be more phosphorus?
we're concerned about that, yes.
That'll reduce your Secchi depths and cause more algae blooms? That's what you're concerned about?
That's what we're concerned about.
All right.
Okay, we have another
Yeah,
question.
sediment and phosphorus are two different things, but did this go to MEPA?
Yes, it did.
Did they,
We didn't get a
did
response.
they issue a finding in
They-
our?
Not to us, they, I mean.
No, but for this project,
I haven't heard it, I mean, they maybe have, you know.
So, I mean, we have our MEPA certificate.
we got a
Yeah.
certificate, which means that they MIPA looked at this as part of their consideration and decided it wasn't relevant and gave us a positive finding.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, you can talk to 2 scientists, 10
So for you to
scientists
bring it
over
up
10
again,
different
it's already been entered into the record, it's already been considered by MIPA.
Yeah, okay, like I say.
And
you
they,
know,
and they
certain-
considered it not a significant.
I didn't see I didn't see that, but that's okay, it could be. But again, what one scientist does and another one, I'm kind of saying what Bill was saying before. We have concerns and the state's probably gonna prevail. One other question, when was that dam last rebuilt on Welsh Pond? Anyone know?
When it was
Like
built.
20s, early
The 20s.
1930s.
So the one you're gonna build is only gonna last 20 years, you mentioned. You said, because if you do, you have to rebuild it in 20 years. That was gonna be a lot worse dam than the one they put there.
Yeah, well, they probably should have worked on it every 20 years, but they didn't, and that's
Yeah.
why it's in the shape it's in now.
So going,
Ongoing maintenance is not.
Yeah, let's kind
not a
of
free.
wrap this up, and, because we have other things to do here.
Okay.
I mean, so going back to your phosphorus concerns, those concerns came to our attention during the NEPA process. Commonwealth doesn't have the ability to commit to mitigation that goes out like beyond the end of the window of our capital plan. So we can't say we're gonna help with, treatment of algae blooms and that kind of stuff. But we did adjust the design to address that, and that's how we came. The original expanded environmental notification form had 3 different concepts that were under consideration at that time. And then considering the comments that came in during that public review process, we addressed them, came up with this design, which, is kind of a compromise design, but it really addresses those issues. And, that's really the best we can do on those topics. And, I have a house on a lake up in New Hampshire, it's been in my family forever. And, we've seen changes in our watershed too, but, honestly, after everything I've seen on this project and having been involved with it, I would not be concerned about the impact of this on this area.
So Dan, my bullet point on that is Commonwealth cannot help with any potential algae blooms in Lake Singletary, but you designed the project so that that doesn't happen. Does that sound right?
Right, that's how we address that concern, was through the project design.
Yes.
It's gonna happen, so.
Oh, you're gonna make a motion, I can't make a motion.
Well, they're not quite done yet,
Right.
right? Still gonna,
Well, they-
you're gonna include this as part of the notice of intent now? Just add this on
We were going to file it separately.
separately? Okay.
So we,
We can proceed with the rest of our permitting on this.
so this would be a separate one to close out tonight, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's up to you. Tough one.
It's not gonna change.
Okay, so let's go through it one more time so everybody is as comfortable as they can be. All right, let's go to the public interests. And Wanda, where's the black folder? Nope. Where's my, oh, it's right here. I can never remember the public interests off the top of my head. So.
I believe we went through them one by one previously,
I
yeah.
just wanna make sure that everybody's on the same page. All right, first one, protection of public and private water supply. All right. Second one, protection of groundwater supply. Third, protection of flood control. Number 3, storm damage prevention, which could be, there could be your concerns about washout and sediment. Prevention of pollution, which could include sediment. I suppose it could include the potential for excess phosphates going into Singletary and causing algae bloom and pollution that way. We're not going into shellfish. Protection of fisheries. Protection of wildlife habitat. That's under the Wetlands Protection Act and also the bylaw. But the bylaw also includes recreational opportunities in protecting those and also protection of aesthetics. So you gotta think about those particular issues and your level of comfort that this project is not going to have adverse impact on those public interests and values. And if you can say you're comfortable, then an aye vote is in order. If it's not, for even one of those, then a nay vote is in order, but I would recommend a statement as to why you're voting nay. Because if you do a denial, we really have to go into detail as to why we did not. So in case there is an appeal, we'll have points to argue.
My opinion is it's a public safety issue. The dam has been deemed unsafe. And the issue of the fishing and the fire department are going to be addressed. I believe that they've been careful with talking about sediment release, and I trust that that'll work. Yes, people like the looks of that pond. It doesn't look so pretty right now because it's all weeds and stuff. But yes, it's pretty, but I remember when there was trees there, so, you know, again, Bob, I'm old.
I lived out in the 30s.
Well, I was 40s, but
I think if anybody's gonna go for this, I think there should be several things in the order.
like that.
Right, well, and I think that the Lake Singletary boat ramp should be completed before any construction starts on this, as well as the fire hydrant, the dry hydrant.
I don't think they have any jurisdiction over the
They can't
sanitary
start.
boat ramp,
It's a state project.
but they're Fish and Wildlife. Is that Fish and Wildlife?
It's part of the same department.
Yeah.
And
So what's
I
the-
understand that's on the budget for this year, in the budget for this year.
So state that again, and I'm gonna write this down.
I don't think that any of this project should begin until this Lake Singletary boat ramp is repaired, so people can fish off of it. I don't wanna see it start until the dry hydrant's in place for the fire department.
So are you saying that you would be okay with this project as long as the boat ramp at Singletary gets repaired for fishing?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
making suggestions for people that think it's okay. I think that should be part of the order if it's gonna pass.
Should be a special condition.
Should be a special condition.
We have no control over that project, even though it's all in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That could make things very difficult for us. We could do the dry hydrant access.
That's what I was thinking, that it would be a condition, the dry hydrant would be a condition as a more immediate public safety thing.
The soil or the sediment should not be stored on site, if there's any way around that.
If anyone's got a yard nearby.
Good fertilizer.
That's gonna be a separate project. They could still be a special condition that reads that this has to be built, this has to be approved before any work begins, but also it has to be at least done concurrently, if not before.
Let me ask the question, if we
Yes,
didn't
sir.
approve it tonight, they're gonna appeal to the state's gonna overrule the town anyway.
Right.
So maybe that'll put it just out of funding.
That's a game you could play, but that's your call. If there is an appeal, it'll be on two levels. It'll be with DEP under the Wetlands Protection Act, but there'll also have to be an appeal to Superior Court under the bylaw, which means the lawyers are gonna have to get involved, which means that they're gonna have to have a lawyer involved, and town council here is gonna have to get involved as well. So there's gonna be cost on both sides.
I might interject that I was told recently that the state does not have to comply with local bylaws, but we do as a courtesy in general.
Is this executive privilege, like Mass Dot uses?
I'm not sure, and I'm not an attorney, but I spoke very recently to an attorney that was actually surprised that we had to file under the bylaw. But we are trying to address your concerns under the bylaw.
It's a question for town council.
Sounds like a giddy up. No matter what, in my opinion, what we do up here tonight, no one's happy. Well, other than the state gets what they want. The majority of the townspeople don't get what they want. If we say no to it, the town gets involved with the town council. You're probably talking 6 figures in attorney fees. Then they're not happy with us. So in my opinion, it puts the board in a really tough spot. And part of the only reason I would say go for this is because why stop the inevitable?
Therefore,
Make a motion to close the public hearing. Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions for Merrill Ponds WMA West Sutton Road with the conditions of the dry hydrant.
Yeah, it would be a notice of intent must be approved before the rest of this project moves forward.
So an NOI for the dry hydrant before the project actually starts or
Yes.
moves.
And I think you can condition the sediment stuff with that NOI, that does not, that needs to be covered with this one. I think you covered that enough. So, when I write in the section of the order of conditions as to why the commission felt comfortable with it, or comfortable enough, I talk about the mitigative measures that the commission did not feel that there was going to be adverse impact. In addition, to go along with that, there's mitigation involved. The applicant is, I think one of the things I'm gonna say is that this is a, public safety issues. I'm gonna be putting that in. Tell me if you don't want it in. There's issues of public safety, so that was concerned. I'm gonna include the issue with the dry hydrant as part of the public safety and mitigation. I'm going to include the fact that this is a habitat conversion project. But then when it's gonna get a little sticky is when I talk about the recreational values under the bylaw and the mitigation that they're providing. And I suppose that's going to include the parking area. Anything else that was involved with that?
Parking area, improve boat access to Adams Pond.
That's right. Improve access to Adams
in parking.
Pond and parking area.
I don't know why you just don't put it's approved, because if it's not approved, they're gonna appeal to the state.
Do we have a second?
Keep it simple.
So there was Bill made a motion.
It could be second, I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Opposed.
Opposed.
2 and 2.
I thought a tie was a loss to the applicant.
Maybe.
Okay, so Bill made the motion.
Reluctantly.
Bob made the second. 4. Joyce. Anyone
And
else?
Bill.
And Bill.
Again, my only reason for my motion, on record, is because I don't want to waste the town's money, just like the state doesn't want to waste theirs. Because those attorney fees are not going to be cheap.
My personal opinion is not gonna make it that far. I think it's gonna be real rude anyway.
It's gonna what?
I don't think there's gonna be any, like he says, I don't think that they have to comply with our bylaw. I think it's gonna happen anyway, but
Now they'll have to appeal it.
If they appeal it, then the town costs, I believe it costs the town money.
A lot.
If this is a DEP level appeal, it's not gonna be all that expensive, it's mostly gonna be me. You can get the town council involved if you want to, I can coordinate with them. And then, I think that, Dan and Mass Wildlife is going to question whether or not, show at least a legal standing as to why you don't have to comply with the bylaw. Because I think that's now in play. Am I wrong?
We have
Sounds
to look
logical to me.
at, we have to decide what our way forward is.
Okay.
for the record, I just wanna say Mr. Buttrick did a wonderful job, and I don't think that, anybody could say that he didn't.
I agree.
They're very thorough, they did a
Right,
great
they
job.
did a great job. It wasn't anything that you did wrong. Do you want our reasons why we voted no?
I would like to hear them.
Okay. Making it short, I think that number one reason for me, living on Lake Singletary is the environmental impact.
So potential impacts to Lake Singletary.
Yep.
In the form of,
Possible phosphorus infiltration and even possible fecal coliform from the manure spreader. That's the right way to say that, Bob, right? Manure spreader?
Yeah.
And also the second would be the recreational loss, whether it be the artists or the fishing. I think they've covered the public safety issues. I don't think that blind corner is as big of an issue as everybody thinks, because if somebody hits something with flashing red lights.
Simple.
okay, so the phosphates, fecal coliform, you're not worried about sediment?
Yeah, we could put that too, sure.
Sediment. Because I know that sediment is on the pollutant list. I'm not sure about phosphate, but, okay, and recreational loss. Okay?
Flood control.
What's it?
Flood control.
Flood control.
That's why they're taking it out.
Ponding.
So you think there's gonna be problems with flood control in the Singletary?
Possibility exists.
So your objections are, under, I always forget, a moment. Would be under the heading of you feel that there's going to be adverse impact to the public interests of flood control and prevention of pollution, if not storm damage prevention, and under the bylaw recreation. Okay. Bob?
Same thing.
Same thing. Same concerns. Okay, so the commission will be basing the denial on, they feel that there's going to be adverse impact to flood control, specifically on its way to Lake Singletary. Adverse impact on the ability of the wetland resources to provide storm damage prevention. And also prevention of pollution. As in, you believe that there will be pollution downstream as a result of this project?
Possibility.
Possibility of it.
Well, you believe that there's a high likelihood of it?
That's correct. The possibility, higher likelihood of potential contaminants traveling down into the lake and or flooding the lake. And there's high possibility of it as a result of not having that
and recreational under the bylaw. There's the loss to recreational opportunities is adverse, and the mitigation proposed.
Well, I disagree with that, but anyway.
Right. Okay, any issues with, protection of public and private water supply? Any issues with protection of groundwater supply?
I think one of the old camps on the corner by your house, the drinking water comes off the lake.
Camps?
Yeah, there's an old camp in the corner there, right at the outlet of the stream that comes from,
Maurice's?
no. It would be, Winnie,
So how does that impact
Donovan's.
groundwater supply?
Wouldn't it be a groundwater supply? Well, I suppose, yeah, it would be just water supply from ponds.
The ground, that'd be surface water supply.
In this case, it's drinking water.
All right, protection of fisheries or protection of wildlife habitat. I think that one's a little tough, given the decisions the commission has made on habitat conversion for it. I think that, probably do better with your arguments with flood control, storm damage prevention of pollution, and recreation. So, okay, so that's, you were in the middle of, oh, we got it, sorry. Okay, so, Andy stated the 3 reasons why he's against it and what public interests apply, and Bob reiterated the same. It's a 2-2 vote, which means that it's a denial. Because when there's a tie, the project is denied.
Is that why Dan quit?
This is the first denial.
Didn't quit.
Do you, now let's, that's the reasons why you don't think this project is gonna go forward. In regards to conditioning, is this gonna be an outright denial, or do you want to, condition the project like was done in Manshaw Pond? And say that this project, what should happen, you will condition a rebuilding of the dams, dams, rehabilitation.
I would change my vote to a yes right now if they raised that pond elevation 2 feet. If they dammed it 2 feet.
Can't afford to do that.
Okay. You could condition it, and then they could appeal it, which I imagine there's gonna be appeal anyway. So what would the condition be?
That the elevation is 2 feet over projected of 570 you wanted.
And that's gonna flood the road.
Well, it would flood the road, it doesn't flood the road now, it's at 575.
You'd be targeting 572 or so.
Yeah.
Still do all over.
Right.
You
I mean,
can
that's
put
the
it in there anyway.
I think we need to move on here.
Okay.
Thank you for working with us on this.
Thank you.
Probably see you again.
See you again. See you in court.
85 Gilmore?
Okay. September 5th.
Do you think I'll get fired now?
Yeah, it costs a lot of money.
10 years, first outright denial.
Yep.
I didn't come on this board to say no to anything.
84 Gilmore Drive, make a motion to waive the reading of 84.
85.
85 Gilmore Drive.
Second?
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have?
DP number came in.
Yes, it did.
Yes, the next morning, the DEP number came in.
Of course.
So I believe we were all set except for the DEP number.
That's correct.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Was there anyone in the audience to speak for this? All those in favor? Aye.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 85 Gilmore Drive.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I guess.
Were there any special conditions?
Oh, there are all kinds, 4 pages worth.
They
Special.
redid the property line. Maybe you can kind of quickly summarize for Brandon, because he wasn't here at the last meeting.
Yep, you should have had Travis in the plans, we did the property line, so all of the buffer zone work, is contained on the proposed
There
lot.
was additional planning.
Yep, additional plantings.
And the last thing I think was vernal pool study and
Yep.
certification if it's appropriate. If it's appropriate. It's all there.
Yep, exactly,
I'm
and
gonna put
grades.
it, I'll put it in the order of conditions then.
Okay.
Those are the three
Too
things.
bad you weren't here before them.
Sorry about that.
So is this the last hurdle?
Yeah, planning board, voted all their approvals, there's one kind of supplemental, subdivision procedural thing Monday night.
What about the gas?
The gas is a wait and see, but it'll go forward without the gas. But they would prefer to have gas.
I didn't know if that was.
Yeah.
So you plan on construction this fall?
If they can get to a closing and they can get this one, final pricing to come in the budget, they will commence earthwork, site preparations for foundation installation if weather conditions accommodate, otherwise foundation and building in the spring, but as much earthwork as they can do before winter sets in.
Okay.
And making sure things are stabilized, obviously, over winter.
All right, thank you.
And I'm gonna stick around for Manchog Road.
Okay, on this last one, you still need to sign it. There is a section Brandon said that will be in the mail. So just send that through. Okay, and this one you need to sign also. This is for the one we just did. Okay, this one is a new one.
Okay, so sign that one.
That's my name there.
Okay. Then Andy has to sign this one and put his line.
Do you want me to print it underneath, Lisa? Do
Hmm?
you want me to print underneath?
No, Bill just told me that you needed to sign it. It was Andy.
No, might have reversed.
All right, we have a new notice of intent here for 7 Whitens Road. The Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, September 5th, 2018 at 7 o'clock, which is, why did this get 7 o'clock? It was on the agenda for 8 o'clock, and it's now 8:50 at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Oxford Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation Commission by Heather Gosnell, Sutton, Mass. Project consists of construction of a single-family house within the 100-foot buffer zone of a BVW on map 49, parcel 89, on 7 Whitens Road, Sutton, Mass. This notice is publicized in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, commonly known as the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Margaret, do we have your resume on file?
My resume?
Mm-hmm.
It should still be on file unless you need a new one.
I haven't been able to go through that.
Margaret's been coming here a long time.
Yeah, I know. So we'll assume your resume is on file?
Whatever is in my
Yeah, I can send you a new one.
Have we received the butter notifications?
Yeah. So they all came back but one, and I made a copy of the one that didn't come back.
And your fees are paid. Do you have any applications pending with any other boards?
No.
Because there is water and sewer there. Right.
Right. But I don't have to go before the sewer department. Might
Was
probably
that
have to
Board
submit a
of,
plan to the building department for approval.
but Board of Health, Planning and Appeal Board, nothing?
No, we went to the planning board last year to subdivide this parcel. Actually, it was 2 years ago, we went to the planning board.
Okay, so you were issued a subdivision, right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to present your project
Sure.
here?
Okay, for the record, my name is Margaret Bacon. I'm an engineer with Civil Site Engineering, and I'm here representing the Gosnells for a proposed house on a vacant lot at 7 Whitens Road. Just to get your bearings, the Manchog Mills are right over here, and the intersection of the flashing light is right here. And there's the big old house on the corner, there's another house here, and then right adjacent to it, there's a vacant lot. It's a mowed lot. It used to be, they were using it as a garden. This house was before they subdivided it. And then there's a large cattail swamp in the back. The Gosnells are proposing a 3-bedroom house, 28 by 32. It's not a very big house, and they're locating it as close to Whitens Road as possible. We have a paved driveway going into a garage, a drive straight in. Wetland limits were flagged a couple of years ago. And what we're doing for, and then, yes, we're tying into water and sewer. No septic's involved here. And for restoration and mitigation, I saw there were several opportunities for some restoration. There's, I don't know if you had a chance to go out there at all, Brandon. There's a lot of invasive species here where I have the highlighted in yellow, mostly bittersweet, which are killing the large trees. A lot of poison ivy. And then over here, there was an area where there was an old trailer. Once that trailer was removed, when they sold this lot, there was a lot of fill material in there, so they're proposing to remove all that stuff out of there and then restore this to a wetland. So I have some regrading proposed here and some wetland plants. Over here, there's an old concrete slab that used to accommodate a shed. That's going to be removed, and some red maples will be planted there. Then for stormwater infiltration, I'm proposing for the roof drains, 2 small little, I call them stormwater pockets. I'm not a big fan of underground infiltrating chambers. These are actually, well, they're surface structures with, stone underneath. And I can't go down too deep because, the wetland is roughly at about elevation 94. And so I really only have a couple of feet to play with, so I can't really put any, deep structures in the ground. So I kind of like to use these, split up the storm water so you're not putting it all in one bigger, system. So I have one roof drain for the garage going this way, the other roof drain going to this, and all they are is like a little rain garden, stormwater pockets with, some 2 feet of stone underneath. And then vegetate along the slopes. And actually, these can be quite attractive. I've got a couple in my own yard. So we're doing, and then several of these large spruce have to be removed. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's about 10 large spruces right out in the front here, right along the edge of the road. And a lot of them are being choked off by the bittersweet and the poison ivy. And actually, the gosnells have been cutting some of that. But you can see some of those trees are in pretty rough shape, and they want to keep as many here as they can to keep a buffer
Cold
zone.
water, please.
So, I have 6 of the spruces coming down, and then we're gonna be planting, I've got 8, red maples to be replanted in other areas, along with, I've got 14 shrubs.
Okay.
And I think I addressed, most of your comments and concerns. You mentioned about putting the permanent limits of disturbance in, which I did, and then the temporary limits of disturbance, which will be around these restoration areas. I revised the wetland placard.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question. The wetland restoration area says permanent and temporary LOD. It looks like it goes all the way around it. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I have erosion control all the way around it, and so I just have the temporary limits of disturbance all the way around it.
Well, I see where the more yellow line reads permanent LOD. Right?
I've got the permanent LOD right here.
Okay.
Okay, and then I had the brown, the temporary, just when we, actually restore that area.
Right, but it says permanent and temporary
Oh,
LOD.
well, okay,
As if the wetland restoration area, the back end of it's gonna be permanent. That's what it leads me to believe.
no, it should be, the back end is just the,
Just temporary.
just temporary.
So I'd remove the word permanent
Okay.
from that, because we know that the yellow line is the permanent LOD, and that goes around the south side of that restoration area, and the temporary would be the back side.
Correct.
And generally, we don't allow any disturbance within 25 feet of the wetlands.
It's for restoration.
I understand,
of a
but as
problem.
far as permanent,
Right, but it's also, pre-existing lawn, so it's kind of grandfathered. That being said, if the commission is not comfortable with the project, and you feel that there's additional mitigative measures required to offset any adverse impact the project may incur, an option you have available to you is to have the applicant let the area within 25 feet of the wetland revert to a natural state. I think what Margaret's trying to do here is restore an impacted portion of the BVW, get rid of a concrete slab that's right near the wetland, and get rid of invasive species as the mitigative plan, and keep the existing lawn as is.
I'd be afraid if you stop cutting that lawn, those invasives are gonna take you over there. In a matter
You
of
can condition it that they have to continue to keep that area free of invasives.
It's easier to cut the grass. That's gonna keep the invasives out. In my humble opinion.
Okay? Let me show you some pictures.
Getting out of order here.
Let me give you a little tour.
So, it's
Alright.
late.
So this is more on the right side, so that'd be the east side, going in from the road, right there. So they show the brush line. Margaret shows the brush line, there's the brush line right here. So that's commensurate with the brush line on the plan. Here's the existing lawn. Okay. Come on. Then I walk in and I look left to the west. So that's about the area where the house is gonna be. Okay. Some kind of planters, like an old garden in the middle. It's growing up a little bit.
Yeah.
But otherwise it's mowed all the way around. Yeah. And then I turn around again, look towards the road. These are the spruces that have all the bittersweet bite on them that's running along parallel to the road. Okay. And then I went to the back. And I took a picture looking into the cattail marsh.
So it's like a peninsula back there.
This
isn't it?
little peninsula, it's mowed all the way, can you point out that little peninsula?
Oh, right here.
Yeah. This is the concrete slab. There used to be a trailer on that. If I go to the.
Used to be a shed.
Right. So what I did is I walked in this way, went up to this little peninsula right here, we see his lawn. And I'm taking a picture of this thing right here. This is pictures from 2013, so I'm guessing that the shed was there then. All right.
And also historically too, I have some pictures in the NOI, that area all used to be a barn. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. Did I
Yeah.
like the?
So, actually, this is what
Yeah,
used
with the
to be
oxen?
there, years ago. Here's the intersection of Whitens Road, the Manchog Mills, and this long barn right here is actually what was on that lot, which is back in the 1800s, and there's an actual picture of it. And actually, too, you can see there, right underneath, there's a lot of granite slabs, and in some areas, especially over here, you can see parts of the old barn foundations, big slabs.
We saw a place covered with plywood, and then there was granite underneath with a hole, and there was a pipe, right?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, and actually, I show that on the plan, that I believe this is the outlet of that pipe. So at some time, it was part of the barn.
Hold up on that.
Sure. Oh, you got it there.
That's what I'm here for.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anything else you want to point out on that?
Well, the cattail marsh, years ago, it used to be a field, and I think a grazing field, and from what I understand from the previous owners, when it was the gas line went in there, and they disturbed something, and that they created that wetland. They blocked up some stream or something, I guess a little stream used to run through that field, but then the gas line came in and changed things, and then that's why you have the cattail marsh.
They ruined it for everybody, right?
Is that what you're referring to? Yeah.
This is the wetland restoration area you want to work on?
Yeah, if you look in there, now it's full of weeds, but underneath there, you'll see old foam, some rocks, and some other parts of the old trailer that used to be there.
Looking back towards the road, so I am standing by the concrete slab, and I'm looking back towards the road. With the brush line on the left, which would be the east side. I'm looking south. And I'm looking towards the middle of the property where the planters are, where Ally is standing, right there. So that's, I guess these are the planters, right here, the raised beds, or used to be.
Used to be.
Right, so I'm standing, about right here, looking, taking a picture towards this. Okay. And then I look more easterly towards the existing house, which would be this house, so I'm looking more in this direction here. Okay. So, yeah, basically, the area where they wanna do the house and the grading, is either these old planters or existing lawn. And I'm looking for a little shed directly east. And then I found this thing, which made me think it might be part of a stormwater system still hooked up to the road or something.
I think that was part of the old barn system.
Is it defunct? Is it still operating? Because I'd hate to see a house put
No,
on
'cause
top of
actually-
an existing
Well,
functional stormwater system.
I'm pretty sure this is the outlet, and there was no evidence of anything coming out of that.
It's actually, let me bring up the plan. Here we go. We found that in the areas of the plan planters, which is actually like where the house is right here. Right in this area right here. Let me go back to the picture. Here's a pipe that I saw that's continuing towards the back. That's going in a northerly direction. I don't know where it comes from, I don't know where it goes.
This pipe here, is that,
Yeah.
that's what you're showing
That's
there?
that, yeah,
Okay.
there was a piece of plywood, stone, and that pipe is in there. And that's where she's standing. That's Joyce standing on top, right next to
Oh, okay.
that little hole. So, do you know, anybody know what's going on with that?
I didn't see any evidence of anything flowing through there. I was just assuming it's all part of the old barns that were there years ago.
It's not, is it functional at all? Do you know? Can you tell us
I didn't see
something about that?
I didn't see any evidences of functioning at all.
There was no grass or any plants in there. It was like dirt on the bottom, so I don't know, would that be something occasionally washes them out through there?
Washes from where? I mean, so you can see, you got an inlet right here, but there's nothing coming into that inlet, correct, underneath that board?
I couldn't tell. On the street side, it was a lot of stone. Maybe there was a pipe buried in there. I didn't see anything, so I don't know.
Well, we can do a little more investigation.
Yeah.
I just made an assumption it was from the old structure. Didn't see anything wet, or any drift lines or anything like that.
I don't, if it's an active stormwater line, then that's gonna have to get rectified, but if it's not, then you just have to prove that it's defunct. I don't think anybody wants to approve a house on top of an active stormwater line, you know?
Right. I don't believe it is, but if you want us to double check that,
Yeah.
sure.
Then this question of just basic, project outline, proposed mitigative measures. Are you comfortable with the project overall?
And you did get your DEP number today.
Yeah, it came in at 3 o'clock. I couldn't believe it. I thought there was Wanda taking a phone call. I just got lucky.
500 square feet of wetland restoration area, so that will become wetlands.
Yes.
The existing concrete pad to be planted with red maples, what's that gonna become? Remove invasive plants, oriental, bittersweet, poison ivy, what's that gonna become?
It looks like they wanna put their permanent LOD on the back side of the existing concrete pad, so I'm presuming from the way that this is drawn, that you would keep lawn underneath the tree, those three
Correct.
trees. That's what you're looking for.
Right.
Okay. But behind that, where the invasive removal is, you're gonna get rid of the invasive and then let it grow back.
Well, it's something you're gonna have to maintain, the invasives, and
That's fine.
It's mostly the bittersweet, and they've already started to address the
The
stuff in the road.
invasive species condition is usually an in perpetuity condition. Do you have a problem with them turning the concrete pad into grass, into lawn?
I mean, ideally, I guess I'd like to see it squared off at that point, and everything north of that could be generally turned back into woods.
Where the peninsula is?
Yeah. You know,
So
wetland restoration area right across to the south side of the concrete pad. Clean that stuff up and let it go back to nature. Put your permanent limit of disturbance and your wetlands flags or signs right across there.
Okay, so we'd go more straight across at the southern.
I mean, unless it's a real reason to keep that peninsula going out into
The only reason to keep the peninsula is because it's always been there, or at least long enough that it predates any wetland laws. But that's only if you feel comfortable that it's, there's not gonna be any adverse impact as a result from the project, and you think that,
you don't need any further mitigative measures. I think Bob's saying that he feels that that peninsula needs to revert, and then that would be an adequate mitigative measure for the amount of disturbance that's occurring here.
And, you know, if you squared it off at the concrete pad,
And that would make you feel comfortable.
it just cleans it up and makes it, you know, a straight line for everybody, and, less lawn to cut out there where the bugs are.
Are you okay with that? I know it's a nice visual because of all the high brush here. You really don't see the cattail swamp until you come out here, which is a totally different environment.
Let me go back to the peninsula. See what it looks like. Yeah, there you go. So that's the northern end of this little grass peninsula area. It's a narrow way in, and it opens up a little bit right there. It ends pretty close to the cattails.
And that portion there is not mowed anyhow right now.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Oh, I was going by the picture, Joyce.
Yeah,
that's
well,
all.
they have mowed it. It's maybe not mowed like a golf course, but they have mowed it.
That's up to you, it's your level of comfort.
How do you feel about it? Would you use that, or do you want to keep it, or would you, is it like, just put the permanent limits of disturbance right across? That's fine, okay.
I like it. I'd be okay with it tonight, if, other than the fact of that
Drain.
drain, and I don't know if there's any way to condition it, that if they dig it up, they find an issue on a system that,
Seems like a little too complicated to me if it is active. It's gonna require some kind of rerouting that's gonna cause more plan revisions.
Well, how about if, put us on for the next meeting, that's 2 weeks away,
Yep.
and we'll have it resolved by then, and
Should be pretty quick if it's,
Right, sure.
as you said.
then they'll be all set to go after that, once we.
hopefully it's just an old farmer burying something.
So
Who
that would
knows
be,
what else you're gonna find.
that would be September 19th, at what time, Wanda?
7:45.
Make a motion to continue to September 19th at 7:45.
Second.
All those in favor?
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We haven't been here till midnight, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
He'll be able to sleep tonight, he won't. Okay.
Thanks for waiting.
Okay.
8:30 and it's now 9:15. We have a project.
I need all
You
the
got stuck
files.
behind the wrong, long project.
Okay.
Seven. Okay, all three here, each individual. What plan you gonna do, Bill?
We have a project update on 13, 15, and 16 Sunrise Drive. Mary Lou had come in a year and a half ago.
More than that.
Mary-
15.
Wow.
15, yeah.
Time flies.
Yes. And she represented her neighbors on cutting trees, so they filed 3 RDAs and got permission to cut trees, and 13 was supposed to put back 1 tree. 1 tree was removed and 3 shrubs or 1 tree to replace it. 15 Sunrise was 3 trees removed, it should have been 9 shrubs or 3 trees. 16 Sunrise was 2 trees removed, and mitigation was 6 shrubs or 2 trees. When I went out there, I couldn't make the things add up to what they were supposed to place, so I went out there and I talked to Susan and Suzanne and Mary Lou, and we went back and forth a little bit on native species, and they were gonna come in with what they wanted to use for their mitigation, seeing they're in Sutton at the present time.
Okay.
So,
So originally, we had put in the upper garden, we put in There was, when you came, it was 10 blueberry bushes and one native tree, a sourwood tree. That was for 15 and 16. That's right on, that would be right on the boundary line.
Yes, that's when I found out that the line goes through the middle of the
Right
garden.
there in the middle of it.
And since then, we've added yet another blueberry bush. So
A high
total
bush?
now- Yes, a high bush.
So there are 11 up in that section. Susan has been able to get, why don't you talk about your project down near the water?
Well, the other, I mean, we walked through the water, or by the water. One of the things that I think added to some confusion, and I don't live in Sutton, so I got a copy of I didn't have my file with me. Got a copy of my approved application from Wanda. And evidently someone made a commitment for us to replant in a certain area.
Down near the water, yes.
It wasn't Mary Lou, it wasn't me. And in fact, that area would have blocked this, would have obstructed the steps where we swim, would have been right where we already have 4 trees. It's to the left of our boat slip. So it's not an area that I would have ever identified, but nonetheless, the day that Joyce came, we looked at a mountain laurel that I had planted near the water, and we were able, I planted 2 more since then. So that should cover 1 tree, and I think that what we have in the garden up above with the blueberry bushes should cover the rest.
How many blueberry bushes up there were yours?
11, or 6 are mine.
6 are yours?
That way. So I have
Actually, the low bush don't count, but the high bush do.
Really?
Because, you know,
It's on all the native plant, shrubs.
Yes, I know.
They say low, that's why I chose
it is native, but what we're trying to do is mitigate for lost canopy on the trees, you know. And low bush are not gonna do
Right.
that, but anyway,
Well, even high bush don't come close.
Yeah,
but it's-
right.
They don't.
but it's a shrub. Had
It's a
nice,
shrub.
you know.
It is.
I've seen some people try to plant cranberries. I saw that once. The commission messed up. Instead of writing Vaccinium corum blusum, which is high bush blueberry, they wrote Vaccinium macrocarpon, which is cranberry. So this person planted cranberry along the buffer zone.
Interesting. So how about, is it Suzanne? What is?
Suzanne has planted 3 blueberry bushes near her stone wall.
Okay. So I can
So
come back and do
you
another
can come
inspection?
back. But while we were here, we were hoping we could get a little guidance for the next round. I have someone coming tomorrow to look at a tree. There we are. We have 6 pines, 1 red pine and 5 white pines that were planted in the early 1930s by my grandparents and Suzanne's grandparents. And I think they're starting to go. The one that's gonna get looked at tomorrow certainly looks pretty bad. And there's about 10 feet from our deck, there's a large white pine, and 20 feet of the top just snapped off during a storm last year and landed on the deck. So I have a lot of concern about safety, for one thing, and not having them fall on the house. But when I look at our property, I see a lot of shade down by the water. I don't think that adding more trees and shrubs is gonna make it any shadier. It really doesn't get sun until about 3:30 in the afternoon. And if you were to look at a Google map, I have one I can show you, you see a lot of trees. You can't see but this much of our stone wall because the trees go out over the water. So the other issue for both of us is that area is nothing but rocks and stones. In order to plant the additional mountain laurels, I removed one other plant that wasn't doing well, and we kind of hollowed out the whole of it. And then we dug in, we had to use pickaxe and shears to get rid of the roots that it is.
Didn't you say your
Back in the-
grandmother made you
Back
put
in the
rocks in?
third-
Yeah.
Well, she didn't make me do it, but I heard my mother talk about it endlessly. Whenever they went down there, they had to throw rocks behind the wall.
To fill it
So-
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Don't get
that was a
caught.
long time ago, but that's what's there. So I really question how well plants would do. So given that situation,
two of the trees that we think we're gonna lose in, maybe the next 10 years are right on the property line. And two of them are in the middle of my front lawn. You can see
The X's?
a couple of them there. Why wouldn't it be acceptable to replant near the trees, but in front of the house, between the house and the water? Mary Lou and I are talking about our next round, and we mentioned it to you, putting in a rain
Rain
garden,
garden.
again across the property line, but in the front of the house. I think what concerns me is that the insistence that we've heard so far about planting near the water doesn't seem realistic. So,
Well, when I was out there, Mary Lou was gonna have an issue with the wall,
yeah.
with the water behind it pushing the wall over in the part that was filled in years ago. And I think maybe that would be helpful to you to put a rain garden in there, between the two properties and, but we'll have to talk to,
I mean, when the time comes.
When the time comes, yeah.
We can do that, but we wanted to.
What about the tree that hit that deck or almost hit the house? Is it going?
Well, I don't know, I have somebody slated tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. It looks healthy, I mean, it's missing the top.
Is it white pine?
Yeah.
They're snappy.
Yeah.
And
But
that's what's all around the house,
that
are
is
these
all of
200 feet, is
these.
it 200 feet, 100 feet, white pines? And you live in fear, you're looking up, so eventually we'd like to replace those with
Maples
oak
and others.
and maple and whatever. But what we have is, we're kind of on a slope, as you've seen. So with these heavy rains we're having, you've got runoff coming down the hill, which we'd like to mitigate with the rain gardens, but would be up closer because we can't dig
Right.
these underneath those trees because of the root system. And whoever filled in front of the camps, like one little section in my area, we actually have like little miniature cinder blocks that are now working their way up.
We've tried to
So-
address it, it's probably worse
Oh.
on the Mulhane side. We put a little shade garden in at the top of our property as you come down, and that's helped a bit, but if that water rushes down, it takes a lot of stuff.
well, I hate to
with
cut
it.
you off, but it's getting
So,
late here.
yeah.
And I will come out and look at what
Okay.
you've done, and then you will be coming back to see us at a later date.
If they take a tree down, a letter from an arborist that says
Right.
there.
Right, yeah, okay.
And I
There we
personally
go.
don't like trees too close to houses, because I don't
Yeah,
want them falling
don't
on your
either.
house.
Can you see the tree right to the left of that one, right there, that's the one that
I can
lost.
see the needles dropping on the roof, so it's
Yeah.
close.
Oh, yeah, they are, and they are, in fact, the other thing it's doing, we thought we had a water problem in the cellar. Had that fixed, but the guy who came out said the problem's really the tree roots getting underneath the cellar floor.
Well, thank you for coming in, and I will
Thank you.
come out and visit you again.
Thanks for sitting
right.
there all
Thank
night.
Okay, thank you.
Good night. Another new one?
Oh, yeah.
No public hearing.
Okay, 125 Lincoln Road. The Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, September 5th, 2018, at 8:45 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Uxbridge Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation Commission by Patrick Gaffney, Sutton, Mass. Project consists of construction of an addition to an existing single-family home and driveway, associated grading and landscaping in a BVW on map 26, parcel 73, on 125 Lincoln Road, Sutton, Mass. This notice is publicized in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, commonly known as the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. We have an issue of this being administratively incomplete because we did not receive the avoidance and minimization statement, and there is an issue with fees, so maybe you can elucidate us on that, Brandon.
The According to the consultant fee schedule that was filled out, $315 was submitted. That's for the linear feet of wetland delineation. But what was missed was the line right above it, which reads $500 base fee per application, plus the $1.50. So it should be an $815 fee, not $315. That's for category 1 projects, which is house additions, which is what we got here. So just a little short on the fee. And the other part is the impact avoidance and minimization statement, which is not in the package, which is was created by the commission a couple of Julys ago, maybe 3.
I've answered that questionnaire, and if that's suitable.
Right now? That's it?
Prefer in narrative form, we can do.
You wrote it in?
Yeah.
Now I have to review it right now?
No, I understand, it's a late submittal. I understand.
Thank you.
So it was administratively incomplete, and we were gonna continue to 2 weeks tonight. That's what we were gonna do.
Okay.
Is there a DEP number yet anyway?
Yes,
It just came today.
So, we, in our cover letter, Scott Jordan from Ecotech, by the way, representing Mr. Gaffney, the applicant and the owner. We have $815 fee.
Consulting filing fee check for $315, but in the consultant fee schedule, it says $315. So, Liv wanted to check on that?
Okay, we received the consultant fee, $850.
So you did receive it for $850?
Yes.
And
He has a copy of the
$25
check.
fee,
Right.
the
It's just the,
42
in the,
42 for that fee.
so,
You're saying on the second page of the bylaw fee form?
yeah, you wrote $315, not $815.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it
So
was
it's just a typo?
typo, yeah. I didn't notice it.
I think I was just working through that section. I didn't carry over the 500, so, but we did pick up on it.
So
We did
this
submit
is
the
what
correct
it
amount.
is.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
But
Fee is
the
correct.
avoidance and minimization,
Which he's submitting right now. Is that enough for him to be able to explain, or?
I don't know, none of us have seen it.
I can discuss the alternative, why we chose to, and that's essentially what this is. Why you're building what you're building.
That's up to them.
He's here.
Yeah. Thank you.
But going forward, we need that,
Okay.
while you go to the next meeting.
So,
Let me ask you, have you any other applications before the Board of Health, Planning, or Appeal Board?
do you have anything, given the applications at Board of Health, Planning Board, anything yet? I'm just gonna need a building permit after this.
Okay.
Okay, so we do have a revised plan. We got some comments from Brandon. And it's, this is a full scale on 11 by 17, so it's a little small. So I didn't bother bringing in the board, but I did mark my copy up a little bit, so. We were on the site several months ago, and we delineated boarding vegetated wetland on the property. I've shown that in blue here. The property is a developed property, has a 2-story single-family house and paved driveway. And there's also an old driveway in this area that isn't used. It's kind of steep down. And I'm showing a 100-foot buffer zone in yellow here. And we're showing a 50-foot buffer zone in yellow here. There's no work proposed within 50 feet even though most of the property is, like I said, already developed. So existing two-story home, we're proposing in red here, a 600-ish square foot garage with living space above. So it's 24-foot wide, two-car garage, so that's fairly minimum width, standard. We do need to tie in just a little bit of pavement in this area to match the existing driveway up to this addition. We've proposed, at Brandon's recommendation, a foot-deep stone-lined trench for that small area. For the roof runoff, we are doing 2 Cultex in the front lawn area for the roof. There is some minor grading shown in red behind the proposed addition. That will of course be seeded to lawn. We have in the dashed line here a straw wattle and silt fence barrier to limit of work. And at Brandon's recommendation, we've carried it actually around the existing driveway for potential runoff that may head to the south. That's the proposal. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them.
Just make sure the straw wattles are 100% biodegradable. No,
Yeah, we actually have a note, yep.
Yeah, no plastic stuff on it.
Yep, and I'll tell Mr. Gaffney what's involved with that.
And I believe my father owned this land at one time and
Is that
sold
right?
it, yes, yeah.
Before it was developed?
Yes, he sold it to, I believe, Rini Hebert, and who built 3 houses, yeah. And I found an Indian stone down in the woods there when I was a little kid.
Native American.
There you go.
Let me go through some pictures. So, can you point out the area where the addition will be?
Yes, the addition's gonna come off this way.
Pretty house.
You can see on the plan, this deck, it's gonna, obviously, we're gonna move the deck. We're gonna come this way and slightly bend this way. The parking area is,
I'm standing in the parking area.
yeah, the parking area is right in here, so we'll tie into that. You know, if we had considered going to the north side of the house, we would've had an issue with the side yard setback. And like I said, they don't use that driveway, it's kind of abandoned, it's kind of steep down. And obviously, we would not want to go to the east, we'd be closer to the wetland, we'd be into this developed lawn area. And to the west, we have the existing septic. So that's what kicked us where we ended up, and it's, we would actually not be any further from the wetland anyway if we had gone to the north. So here's the 50-foot setback, here's our proposal, 50-foot setbacks up in here
Pretty much in
also.
the lawn area right now, right?
Yeah,
All along right now.
yeah, it's,
So my concern mostly had to do with stormwater runoff, which is why I recommended the Cultec chambers for the roof runoff and a stone trench to handle any new runoff from the section of driveway they're putting in, and have them extend their limited disturbance to go all the way around the existing driveway, the parking area, which is that's that squared off area on the south side, is the parking area. It's just about all asphalt, because I'm sure they're gonna be using that as some kind of staging area, you know, most likely, so.
Yeah, it's a
might
good
as well
point.
include it. You know, this picture right here is taken at the southeast corner of the parking area. So looking down at the bottom of the hill right here where it's real thick, that's where the wetland is. So everywhere they're proposing the work is a disturbed area, and provided you're happy with the stormwater infiltration they're doing, I think this is a pretty straightforward project.
not to mention, he just had his 3rd child last week, so.
Congratulations.
He needs to get going on this.
Well, he needs to go home and sleep.
That was what spurred this whole project.
Are you happy with the impact of what you just got? I know it's, is it enough detail. It's
kinda
pretty.
it's kinda rewarding them for not doing what they were supposed to do, but yes, I am.
Have you learned your lesson to get in a timer?
Yes, and not my defense, my fault, but I haven't been here in a little while, I was aware of the phone, but I should have taken a quick look through the new bylaw. I appreciate that, yeah, but again, if you go through the alternatives, if you work through it almost like a riverfront thing, we had no alternative but to go there, due to the septic, and the setbacks, and wetland to the west. It's good.
Bob?
No problem.
Andy?
Looks good to me.
Bill?
Good.
I think it's approved as is.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye. Make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 125 Lincoln Road as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks for waiting all night.
All right.
We have an empty seat if you'd like.
Okay, you need to sign that one too.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't care how cold it is the next meeting, we keep that window open.
Oh, you know, I don't know.
Well, you can maybe open it now because it's,
Is it cool out there?
A little bit.
Can you make a motion for central air conditioning? Why don't we start with chairs
Now we-
first?
Yeah, about
Bring the-
15
bring my
years
own.
ago.
Yeah.
there is air conditioning,
About 15
sort
years
of.
ago.
There's an override required. Have to put an override. Huge chairs. It's not in the budget.
No, right. Oh, that's nice. What do you think Dan's doing right now?
Sitting home,
Sleeping.
sleeping on the couch.
Hopefully in the air conditioning.
In the AC, right?
Cold beer.
Yeah.
Okay. And which one are you here for, so we can jump to that
182 Manchok?
Bill?
182 Manchog? If, it's not on the agenda, but we'll
Yes,
get you
it
out of
is.
here.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
on
it
there.
is?
It's got a phone and paper.
Oh, yeah, at the top. Oh, it's the extension, that's right.
182.
Yes, I'd like you to explain why you had to go to the Board of Health and get a variance.
Okay. For the record, Steve O'Connell, Andrews Survey and Engineering. So what I've got here on the front of this is the plan referenced in your order of conditions, where the house was gonna be demolished and reconstructed, which is being pink. The existing garage was gonna remain. Decks and patios in yellow that I've highlighted. And you approved a plan showing a proposed well, new well, down close to the lake. The existing well is up here, and then this would be the tight tank. That was not going to be approved by the Board of Health because they felt that we had locations further away from abutting private wells that we could fit the tight tank and use the existing well out front. So in conjunction with some revised architecture and trying to comply with Board of Health requests, there's a plan revision that essentially just swaps the tight tank and the well. So the existing well remains. The detached garage becomes attached with the new architecture. Much less decking around the house. If I just quickly flip back, you see the extensive decking that went around the front and the side has kind of been reduced. So no more side decking, just a little bit of front deck at the main entrance of the house. Again, attached garage. We had to go back to the zoning board for special permit because the existing non-conforming lot, and
plan to the Board of Health, and not just a Jim Malley approval, but an actual Board of Health vote, where we met on the premises to confirm the number of bedrooms. So, as they typically do, they condition their approval that the tight tank be a monolithic tank, so that's a single-piece tank, no seams, no gaskets.
This is for an extension.
So, my initial request was for an extension for the order of conditions that you had issued for this original plan. I wasn't involved for most of this work. You may remember Paul Hutnack was. Paul's no longer with us, and so unfortunately, with a little bit of communication problems, not realizing that the commission hadn't approved the plan where we moved the tight tank to comply with Board of Health. So, I guess what I'm asking is, I would be seeking an amended order. I can make that request, but due to the time constraints for the expiration of the current order, I would request that you extend that order. And then, under that order, we can do two things. We can proceed with the demolition of the house, because that was part of the order. We can do an erosion control inspection and a project construction meeting. But then prior to the start of any construction, I would submit and you would act on an amended order if you felt an amended order was appropriate, as opposed to a new notice of intent, which had the tight tank in the back, utilizing the existing well. We have access, we have permission for access down the neighbor's driveway for equipment to excavate that 2,000 gallons, maybe about 24 cubic yards of excavation for that tight tank. We'll excavate it, right into a truck. That'll take it away. Nothing changes on the limit of works, with the erosion control barrier that was previously approved is where it will remain. The stone outfall for the roof drains are all intact. Slightly less impervious overall from the original plan. So there's a lot of positives about this, including the fact that the Board of Health has approved this plan in conformance with Title V, which presumes conformance with the Loan Protection Act, but obviously that's your jurisdiction. So
What I would like to see is the mulch socks, because that is such a steep place down there.
Yep.
And if you put straw in and you get water coming down, they're gonna float.
Couldn't agree with you more. I love the compost
Yep.
mulch socks, the heavy 12-inch sock.
Right.
You and I both spoke to the contractor. He has no problem with that, and that's his intention. So,
Could this be just a minor field change?
No.
That's up to you.
No.
Too
It's up to you.
low?
I think it's too much.
Is the house,
So they're gonna
is that a new configuration on the house?
Come in for an
Big deal?
amendment.
slightly. So the previously approved house was a little bit bigger, and we were utilizing the existing detached garage.
Right, that's what I have up here too.
Yep. But now the garage will be attached, and if you can kind of see them, it's smaller.
Is the new house and deck any closer to the water?
No closer, and smaller footprint.
We were down there the other day, and people gone in and broken the windows. It's a real mess.
Oh, the
Yeah.
place needs to go.
Yeah, we
They
walked through
broke
with the
every
Board of
single
Health.
window in the house, there's glass all over the place.
Yeah. The neighbors actually came to the Board of Health meeting in support of our request because they'd like to see the property improved.
Yes, the place has been vandalized bad.
Yeah.
Now is
So,
the,
it's a tight tank's a tight tank, as long as it stays tight, there's no problem.
Right, and that's why the Board of Health likes a monolithic tank, so there's
Yeah,
no.
I mean, these old cottages along the lakes had the well up by the road and the septic system's down the bottom so it could gravity feed, which is the easy thing to do. Cesspool, right. So, if things were done today, the well would be at the bottom and you'd be pumping up to the septic system. I can understand where the Board of Health's coming from because all the wells are up along the road, so you have even a tight tank up by the road that messes up the distances of the wells. So, if you don't, you'd have to change all of them all at once. That's never gonna happen.
so is the garage gonna be demoed too, or in a new garage, or?
Yep, the
Yeah.
existing garage will be demoed.
So as long as the tank stays tight, there's gonna be no leakage and then therefore no environmental impact.
Agreed. Yep, and I think, like I mentioned, the Board of Health kinda, habitually requires a monolithic, single chamber tank, most tanks come in two pieces, and they've got a rubber gasket seal, horizontal. This is a one-piece, solid concrete 2,000-gallon tank, and that's in their conditions of approval, that's what shows on our plan.
So there's two questions. Number one, are you willing to give an extension in how long, 1, 2, or 3 years? And the second question is, these changes, do you feel that they are minor enough to be a minor field change, or do you think it's a little more, it's more than that and requires an amendment to the order conditions?
I think to be on the up and up with everything in the details, we need an amendment instead of a minor field change, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, we're okay with that. I think that's appropriate. I think we would do a written request, detailing the things I just explained, giving you an updated plan.
A narrative on what changes would be wonderful.
Yep, absolutely. And then that would be something you would have to vote on. Does not require a butter notification, as far as I'm.
It does, yeah. When you do an amendment, you have to do a legal ad and a
Yes,
butter
yes,
notification.
I'm sorry, you're right.
So
You're right.
it doesn't require a new notice of intent application.
Correct.
It's just a letter.
Yep.
And re-notification of the abutters in the legal ad.
Yep,
And a public hearing.
Plan on demoing this fall? Is it?
They're ready to go. Yeah, Joyce, I think Mike Salmon contacted me directly, and so if you were to extend the order to allow the demolition to occur, because they're all geared up to do that, we would submit an amendment request right away. We wouldn't be on your meeting on the 19th because the notification.
As long as it has to be in 5 days
Give it
before.
to me tomorrow.
5 working days before the meeting.
Tomorrow.
I'm here till-
So basically, you gotta get the notices out and the legal ad run by next Wednesday.
Yep.
And I need it tomorrow.
She'll need it tomorrow so she can put the
My
ad in the
deadline's
paper.
tomorrow.
Can you do it?
By noon? Good
Well,
time.
I'm here till 3, I'd say at least by 2.
Put
Yeah.
Travis on this one. I'll
Before
take it up
by
tonight.
10.
Plenty of time tonight.
Right.
Yeah, and
3 years?
I'll try like,
Two.
So do you,
we would only need one, because if
Yeah.
you're gonna issue an amended order, we would only need a couple of months, to be honest, but if you're gonna issue an amended order, if we think that's what's gonna happen, that's gonna be superseded by the pending amendment.
Oh, that's right.
So we would just need the minimum. Usually you don't see anything less than a year, but,
Doing it.
happy to.
no, hold on, let me think out loud. An amended order does not change the expiration date. Okay, so the amended order is not like a brand new order of conditions where it's now another 3 years. It's just amending what's existing.
That's actually correct, yes.
Yes, so I'd go
3 years.
Yeah.
Make a motion to extend the order of conditions by 3 years. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
You want to be continued to?
No, we can't continue.
Yeah, you have to wait to get my request.
Yeah.
Oh, so you
Yeah, I
just,
have to
it's
wait
not a
for the
continuation, you just
Yeah, if
want
he
it.
brings me the stuff tomorrow, it'll be on the next meeting.
Yep. Fee for an amendment?
Well, we have this
Is there
little.
any money left in this kitty?
How much you got?
Reminds me of the National Lampoon's Vacation. I'm calling the sheriff. I am the sheriff.
Actually, because the fees got left out. The town fees got left out the last time we did the bylaw, so nobody's been being charged fees for the town portion. So until we have a meeting to
For
rectify
11?
that,
Yep.
there is no fee.
There's enough in there.
Okay.
It's $411 left, that's enough.
Okay. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for coming in.
I will see you at the next meeting, one way or the other, because I just submitted something I wanted.
On the 19th.
Might be another busy one.
We're gonna get that in tomorrow, we'll be here for both. Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Okay, the enforcement order we need to sign for 134 Leland Hill Road. We were there this afternoon and met with Grant Woodward, and he is going to come in at the next meeting and present us with a plan to clean up what he did. He's either gonna take a Bobcat with rubber tires, is it, or whatever,
Yeah,
and get down there,
swamp
or
mats.
shovel it up by hand and get rid of
Or
it. And we discussed about a November 1st deadline before he starts getting fined, so that's what we discussed this afternoon, so.
Really have to get this done, there's a short window. This month and next month, driest months of the year. You never know when the steady rains are gonna start coming back in, it's usually sometime in October, November.
Where was the problem?
I'll show you.
At the pipe outlet? I'm just
N-
going
well,
across the road.
what
Oh, it
happened-
went across the road? I
It-
didn't see that when I
There's,
drove by.
there's two catch basins.
Yeah.
And he constructed a driveway that comes down and,
Yeah.
there was a pipe that daylighted in, and there's two catch basins at the bottom. And then it went quite a ways underground, and you couldn't really see the damage till you walked through the poison ivy and got down there, which I didn't do the first time.
Yeah.
But he'll show you the pictures of, it's a terrible, the worst I've ever seen.
So this is the property
Yeah.
that the issues are at. So, Mr. Woodward
Do we have the enforcement order?
built a road that goes up and around, and I can't see back here.
I drove by it, I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a good-sized gravel roadway coming down to Leland Hill Road, and there's a decent slope right here. The right side along this property line is a major gully. And just so happens that right here in the road, there are two catch basins. And the catch basins outlet to a pipe about right there, where the arrow is.
Okay.
And what it does is it discharges off the pipe, it goes down this hill, and at the bottom of this hill, right in here, is a nice, big, really wet, flat swamp. And at the bottom of the hill, the sediment is pretty thick, but it also continues in this direction for 150 to 200 feet. It gets thinner as you go along to become a veneer an inch or less in depth. My recommendation is to concentrate on the area where it's deeper, because the area where it's about an inch, if you're going in there with equipment, or even if it's a bucket brigade, you're gonna be tearing stuff up and probably doing more harm than good. So I think this is one of those situations where you gotta concentrate on the worst areas.
Whose land
Is that?
Whose land?
John
To be
Burns.
very- John Burns, this is part of Leland Hill Estates, this is the conservation restriction that it dumped onto.
Oh.
But who owns, John Burns owns it? It's
Yes.
not owned by,
He owns
No.
where it dumped onto.
Yes.
Right.
no,
so-
but I mean, he
so-
kept it with a.
See this area right here?
Usually it's signed
Yes.
over, isn't
This,
it?
this was the open space requirement for Leland Hill Estates. So he put this parcel, it used to be all one, and he created a new parcel that's now conservation restriction land, can't do anything with it. And he has 50 feet of frontage on Leland Hill Road right here.
And that's where it goes, right down there.
And it was right down, when I saw that, I went, oh, just call John.
And he did.
And he did, he says, go right on down, do what you need to
Do we have, would we have an address for that for me to put down, or?
I'll tell you in a
For
second.
what, one
For
thirty-four
the-
Leland Hill Road?
So did
Across the
134
street.
stabilize that driveway?
No.
It's 131 Leland Hill Road is the affected property.
He will put riprap and stuff in that swale that he made.
I'm sure John Kuchar is gonna have more to say about that, even Matt Stenzel's probably gonna have more to say about it.
Yes, this,
But I think that there should be some riprap put into that blowout ASAP to at least slow the water
To
down.
put on the record, there's a lot of nice communication between building inspector John, the DPW Matt, and conservation all working together.
It's been really good. Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, well, that's what should happen.
Power Rangers. But I think we're in luck that, you know, as messed up as it is, that we know the person who has the affected property and is a willing participant. And the fact that Mr. Woodward was willing to come and meet informally, and it was mea culpa. He didn't know, you know, exactly, he got down there, he's like, oh, how am I gonna, I didn't think that it was this bad, I didn't know it went down this far, I didn't know this hill went down so far that it was this steep. Well, how am I gonna fix this? So let's talk about it.
He was not happy when he found out, but
No,
he's,
but he knows that
he knows he has to do it.
He has to do it. Any comments, Bob? It's gonna, I think that he gets a small little mini in there, preferably one without teeth, a nice flat bucket.
How can he get down? It's kind of steep. Is he gonna go in?
It's not that steep, he can get, he can
He
get
can
a machine
sidestep
down
it.
there.
Well, one of the problems too is it went into the drains, and the drain has a big pipe that daylight's about 30 feet down.
Yeah.
And that was carrying a lot down there too.
Just like a chute.
Does the town own a,
They probably have
truck
an
to clean
easement.
it up? No, but do they have a truck to clean out the two storm drains?
I'm sure, I don't know, do they?
They do clean them out, yes.
Got a clamshell maybe?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we had to pay for it, maybe we should backbill it to them.
I don't know if the town owns that yet.
Oh,
I don't believe they've taken it over yet.
gotcha.
Well,
It's
we have a
not,
willing
it's
participant with John
Leland Hill
Irons.
Road, it's not into the,
He's willing to-
into the
He's easy.
development.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, it's on Leland Hill Road.
Oh, okay. Then that's
So the town
case-
does own it, yes.
Case does, town does own it, then it's on Leland Road, Leland Hill Estates.
I'm for us signing this, and I'll come fill this out tomorrow, because there's a little research to do on this.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and then we can do the rest of it. Anybody can sign it, last page, so.
Oops, sorry.
Put it on the inside. Do the
Yeah.
last page.
I will do that. Okay, let's see. Two nineteen, Manchog Road, Strasner, the, Board of Selectmen are going to sign it on their next meeting, so that's taken care of.
Wait a
Strasner?
minute,
Get the
no,
date-
it's not
dates
two
up.
nineteen.
198.
Oh, 198, okay. 198.
219 is a request for certificate of
Compliance with Strasner, okay, I was getting the Manchog Roads mixed up.
Now, do you need to do
Site
site
visits,
visits?
yeah.
219, 21 you already took care of.
Yeah.
197
Seven.
came forward with the letter we sent out. And 5.5 Sunrise Drive, those are all possible site visits.
Plus the other two, right?
The other two.
184R Manchog Road, the island.
Site visit, yeah, well,
And
good luck with that.
355 Boston Road, so,
Those are all site visits.
most of these are in response to the letters that Wanda and I sent out.
Yep.
So it's encouraging that we're getting some response on that. On 5.5 Sunrise Drive, when I went down to inspect erosion controls on 5, and I went to the others on Sunrise Drive, I talked to Mr. Patient, and he had changed engineers, so we got the letter from Raoul, whatever his name is.
The Ross, Chris, or whatever his name
Yeah, and, anyway, he said he was still working on something, but his order of conditions has expired. I think what he's working on is within what his original order was talking about. So, I think if he's got the letter, I think, you know, we can go out and look at them, look at it. That's all right, we gotta go look, let's see.
There's 3 that you need to fill out for planning.
Yes,
so
that's
I'm
what
do
we're
that
gonna do
first.
next.
We have 25 Oakhurst Road, which is an addition for solar.
25 Hocus Road, is this where the other one didn't
Well, they extended it, they want to extend it.
extend what, the,
The solar patent. Saw it here somewhere. Oh, it might be under here. Yeah, okay, see how they want to extend the solar from what it was? This is the original.
But the,
They
this
wanna
one,
do the,
they withdrew
that's
because it was
existing.
all full of wetlands.
And now they want, this is there, that's existing, and they wanna extend this proposed section.
They just want to extend the solar district.
Yeah. Put more solar in.
So what is the solar district?
Talk about getting rid of that planning laws, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Was it the selectmen that were talking about it?
Yes, because, you know, that was so full of wetlands that they withdrew their proposal before. And that's what I couldn't understand
So
when
a
this.
solar district is an area where solar would be allowed, as in large scale
Yes.
mounted solar?
There is no solar district in town.
Yes, there
It's-
is.
And it's spot zoning, so that if somebody wants to build a solar field, then they go to the town and petition them to zone that area for solar.
Right.
Well, that's how it's gonna work, or how it works now?
That's how it currently works.
Yeah.
The selectmen are in the process, it's my understanding, selectmen's in the process of putting the fall town meeting, a warrant that there will be no more large-scale solar inside.
That's the proposal.
But this is in the existing solar district that they approved a year and a half ago.
Well, all they want from us is if something gets done, they gotta come in front of us for conservation, right?
Right.
And
So,
where is it?
it is 25 Oakhurst Road. But,
And the rest of it's-
Oakhurst Road, there's already solar there,
Yeah, it's already feels.
so,
They're just adding to it, is what they want.
and there is, down where the vets is in South Sutton.
We should
Oh,
go-
no.
go to Wareham
Down
or
near
Walmart.
Walmart.
Yeah. Yeah, there is.
There
solar
is,
down there.
there is wetlands all around, but,
That's like right on the
Well,
north
there's
switch
already
line.
solar there, isn't there?
Yeah,
yes,
it's
but they
extending.
wanna extend it.
Oh, into, well, that's,
Northbridge.
Northbridge.
Same, half of it's
You
gonna
wanna
be
see this?
Northbridge and half is gonna be inside.
I would just put on the thing, they need to file with us if they're gonna extend.
The wetland is.
It's all around it, yeah,
Basically the tree line here.
yeah.
What was there, a gravel pit or something?
Yes.
Yeah. That's more or less the wetland line right there in yellow.
Oakhurst filed with us back
That's
in
pretty straightforward.
2008.
So, would they need to file?
Is anything within 100 feet of the wetland boundary?
Okay, that's what I'll write, anything within 100 feet of wetland boundary.
Right, which we know was delineated in the past, so they have record of where it should be, so it's pretty straightforward. I would make a note, like reference old plans. So no solar, not even in a commercial industrial area?
On buildings, you know, in your home or on buildings and stuff
How about a
like this.
carport?
Yes. But they're trying to get away from the big solar farms.
These are issues that are very relevant across the Commonwealth right now.
Okay.
Towns are struggling
Yeah.
with how to zone solar right now. I just
gonna sign it,
represented a
or
client
you sign
in
it?
Blackstone last night
Yeah.
who has a 1,000-foot long driveway out into the woods where they have their log cabin completely surrounded by forest and a hayfield. The guy who owned the hayfield and another 30-some-odd acres died recently, gave it to his children, and they both sold out to land developers. They're in the process of building a subdivision in the big hayfield right now, and in the back, they wanna put up a 25 or 28 acre large-scale solar project. So
Okay.
now their retreat in the woods is now gonna have houses on one side and a solar field on this side.
Okay.
And they're just really distraught.
This last one here is 179 8 Lots Road, that's lot 3. Is that the one that's got the wetlands all across the front, so they can't put a driveway in?
What-
I don't know,
what's
the
address?
thing is here.
179 8 lots.
Right here, right.
That's what I had
It's
heard from
one-
previous.
This one
that-
right here that the person backed out of or something.
Yeah, because they can't access it, they have to access it from the other person's property.
And here is the
Is it flagged as
chapter.
wetlands? I saw the
I
blue
think
flags
it's
there.
still in
No kidding.
chapter land.
Yeah.
Who sunk the
They-
tractor in there a couple years ago?
Who was it? I forgot, it was a few months back, but they were saying, oh, that's what happened, that they
So
had
is
to
there an
access
easement?
it.
Did they already get the easement?
Just gonna go on the old track.
So I would say yes, I got a file.
Well, that just,
It's a new,
That's
it's
a
the
road.
third.
The big field.
do we have any problem with removing from
Across from
61A?
Mr. Maroney's
It's
house.
just taking it out of.
61A,
Yeah.
no objection.
Yeah, somebody used to hate it, not Dan. I went to my mother-in-law's.
That was Cronin's.
Haying it, left my mother-in-law's, the tractor was up to the,
Yeah,
like, windows, it went in it.
Oh, what's his name, Hayes that from,
It's like-
Northbridge?
Yeah, they drive the tractor all the way through Northbridge, right?
Zerlag.
Is it recorded yet?
I think.
That was a couple years ago now. Hay grows good though.
Ten Nine-Tails growing out.
Is it?
yeah.
So we better get the
Okay.
weed whacker out.
That's not fun getting stuck.
No.
That ruined your
Not in
day.
a tractor. It sat there for 2 weeks.
Okay, this is 382 West Sutton Road, scenic road alterations. I don't know what that means. Copy of an application plan submitted by Stephen LaFleur for property.
Oh, it's to cut into a wall, to fill in one part of a wall and cut through to the other, to a different area.
Relocate the
Relocate the
driveway
driveway.
entrance, which includes removing a portion of the stone wall to create a new entrance and rebuilding the existing location.
He was in front of us.
Yeah, that's Glenn's
That's
project.
Glenn's project, and then remember he was talking about redoing the stone wall?
Okay,
Why is
that's,
it coming in front of us though?
they've already,
I would say they already have an order, that is an open order, right?
Yeah.
yes, no issue.
No
That
issue.
has to go through planning though, right?
Yeah.
Planning sent it to us,
Oh,
probably.
gotcha.
They have an order of conditions, I'll write that on here.
Well, Dan would be disappointed how late we are tonight.
Moving right along.
You need a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Sec- All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Actually, we did pretty
Are
well.
we off?